Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. We are live, and we are live early today because we've got CPI coming up. That CPI will be out in about 9 minutes, and we need a bit lower than 2.5 for the markets to like the CPI. So we are going to get into it, and we're going to see what we get for CPI. Good morning, good morning, good morning. We got a bunch of headlines this morning. Before we even get CPI, the biggest one that is coming across the screen that I think a lot of people are going to be happy about, Nvidia has invested $2 billion into Nebius. There you go. Nebius, $2 billion bucks by Nvidia. This is actually really, really nice to see because Nvidia has been giving a lot of love to CoreWeave over the past couple of months, you could say. I mean, they had a $6.3 billion put option on them. They invested another $2 billion. 85% of their equity holdings are CoreWeave. So, Nebius was there. Applied Digital was there. They sold all of their APLD a couple weeks ago. It is nice to see them lean harder into Nebius, given, I think the Nebius thesis is much more pristine than a lot of the other neoclouds that are out there. And they're growing. They're growing fast, and they need a lot of support in order to be able to execute on that growth. And it looks like Nvidia is giving them that support. So very nice to see. I mean, that's a great headline to start off the day. And it also shows that this kind of Berkshire of tech thesis on Nvidia is continuing to come true as they spread out their equity investments. They have $60 billion in cash. They got to put it somewhere. And it looks like they're putting it into some of the neoclouds. Nebius right there, up 10% on the day, 9.7%. Now, again, Nebius has hit these levels before, and then it's come back down into the 90s. So this is really just a question of if it can hold on to this momentum. But it has been within this range, and I think a break above 110 gets it out of this range. And in about an hour, we'll see how the markets interpret it when it breaks out of that range, if it is able to. 105.81 on Nebius. Oracle, up 10% as well. They had a great earnings. We will talk about what happened with Oracle, but not too bad. CoreWeave's up 4% based on this Nebius deal. Iren is up 2.5%. S&P 500 basically flat in the pre-market, nothing too crazy. Again, Nebius is up 10%, and Nvidia is up 0.25% on the day. So we'll get into all of that stuff, but we got to get through CPI, which we get in 7 minutes. And once we get through that, we'll keep going. We'll keep going from there. This is like if you're here right now, you're here because you're really a market junkie and you care about this macro data, because most people don't get up this early to get it. But this is an important one. I mean, I don't think it's like going to be massively market moving if we come in line, or even if we're down or up 0.1, 0.2%, like 50 to 100 basis points. But if we have a bad CPI, and here are the expectations right here by Wall Street, by a much more exaggerated amount than it obviously could be worse. The street looks like they're expecting 2.4 on the median. There's other expectations showing 2.5. So if we come in around 2.4, 2.5, we're going to be okay. If we come in at 2.3, it's going to be a party. Coming at 2.6, I think we'll be okay. We get to that 2.7, 2.8, it gets a little ugly. And the market has to figure out, all right, we should probably start pricing out these rate cuts because they're just not going to happen. In fact, Jason showed us yesterday on Technical Tuesday that there's now only one cut priced in for 2026 in September, and the next cut is March of 2027. So it is going to take a while for us to get these cuts unless something changes, and that's either the labor market or inflation coming down. And as of now, we're going to have to wait to see where that goes from there. So that's what we got. We got 5 minutes, and we'll see what we've got going on. Ethan, hello, good morning to you. He says, hi, my name is Ethan, and I'm a market junkie. So am I. Guilty as charged. I'm beneficial, says guilty as well. Good morning again. Tomas, what's up? Adam, we got Matt Money in the chat. We got Mr. Fritz, who is here. Oracle, again, great earnings yesterday. We'll talk about those results, but they crushed it. And they were already down 50% from that, more than 50% from high. So at this point, any piece of good news was going to help them. And, the earnings weren't like absolutely sensational, but they were good enough where it's like this thing probably shouldn't go down 10%. And instead, the street took it up, which was very nice to see. June, what's up? Carl, what's up? Rise of the Moon, good morning. Benny the Bull, let's go. Good morning. Caesar, what's up? Got a lot of market addicts here. If we get a good CPI, we're going to be in a decent spot. And hopefully that happens. Charles, good morning. Sean, what's up? Trey Crawford, Amit monitoring the situation every day. Again, we will not have a market close today because I will be going somewhere that requires a bit of driving, in this case, FSDing, but we will be back tomorrow and we will keep going from there. Do we have any earnings today? I don't think we have any crazy ones. Adobe is tomorrow. Today is UiPath and Bumble. UiPath and Bumble. Kender says hello from Kenya. Hello to you from Kenya. I love it. We got 4 minutes left. Melanie, what's up? Thank you for being here, Melanie. It was awesome seeing Melanie at the New York City meetup. Couldn't believe she was there. I was like, what's your name? She's like, Melanie. I'm like, there's only one Melanie I know. And she's a teacher in Seattle. So are you her? She's like, I'm her. I was like, that's crazy. So shout out to Melanie. Jerry from Malaysia, what's up? Samir, Yomit, first time catching the beginning of the show. I usually catch the end and word of the day. Well, we are here. Hopefully we have a good word of the day, and hopefully we have a good CPI as well. And we can get some of this momentum. Paul, what's up? Drew, what's up? Larry, what's up? Vi, what's up? Christopher, good morning. Good morning. Gene, what's up? Shout out to the Seattle fam. Hopefully we will do a meetup in Seattle one day. But speaking of Seattle, Washington, they instituted their first state income tax today. I had no idea that Washington did not have state income tax. But they didn't. They're one of 10 states in the country that don't have state income tax. They are instituting a 9.9% tax on every dollar made over $1 million. So if you make over $1 million in Washington, you will now pay a basically 10% tax. But that 10% tax, again, is going to be limited to only if you make above $1 million. So most of their income taxes, or most of their taxes that fund the state, are routed through consumption taxes and basically buying stuff at a grocery store. There's a higher tax there on goods and services versus on the actual income itself. Now, Howard Schultz, who's one of the biggest guys of Seattle in terms of he started his career in Seattle, built Starbucks, obviously. Today, he said he's moving to Miami. And he said gradually Starbucks will move their headquarters to Tennessee. That would be kind of crazy because Starbucks is one of the biggest companies in Seattle, and I imagine they pay a lot of taxes there. So he is officially moving to Miami, and he is going to try to save 10% income taxes inside of Seattle. So we're going to see how these states institute more of these laws as they, start to generate a bit more income from some of these broader high earners. Quarantine Quartet, what's up? We got CPI in 2 minutes. Livia, good morning from Colorado. Thank you for being here as well. Sid, what's up? Pre-markets, again, are relatively green. We're doing pretty okay right here. CPI is either going to mess that up or keep it going. Yesterday, I do think was a green day. I mean, S&P ended green, the broader market. Well, S&P ended flat yesterday. It's down $1, but it was at 682 at one point until it reversed. We'll talk about what happened yesterday, but oil prices were down and then they went up. There was a tweet that got deleted by the Secretary of Energy, and that got the market thinking that, wait a second, oil is actually in a vulnerable situation. And so you had a bunch of stuff happen yesterday that kind of caused this momentum to the downside, but we at least ended flat. Nvidia was green. A lot of these semis were green. Software, unfortunately, could not catch a bid. IGV, are we still red in the pre-market? We are actually green. Nice to see IGV catching a little bit of a bid. Nebius, again, up 11%. Nvidia invested $2 billion into Nebius this morning. That's why that stock is up 11%. And now CPI will determine where we go. All right, so let's pull this up for CPI. We got about 30 seconds here. I'm looking at consensus estimates of 2.5. I'm looking at 2.5 as the number we've got to beat. So here we go. All of us here together. Bunch of nerds waiting for one number to see if we make money or lose money today. I don't think there's anyone I know who is actually waiting for a number to come in lower than 2.5 on a Wednesday morning at 8:30 a.m. But this is why we do this. This is why we do this. Okay, 2.5. 2.5. That's not crazy. 2.5 on core. Month over month, 0.2. Actual inflation is 2.4. Okay, so the expectation was actually 2.4 on not core. We came in at 2.4. On core, the expectation was 2.5. We came in at 2.5. That is not that bad. I actually don't even think the market's really going to have a massive reaction to that. S&P goes very barely green. Nvidia's up a little bit. Nebius continues to go up. Grab's up a little bit. Oracle's up a little bit. CoreWeave's up a little bit. You're not really seeing any major market action right there, which is honestly better than this thing being worse than expected, given the PCE and PPI numbers were really bad. So looks like that's okay.
The high water mark last year was January, and that was up 0.4. Now, if we strip out food and energy and come up with the core expected up 0.2, that's exactly where it comes out, up 0.2. Here we go with the year-over-year numbers. And zero progress, but not losing any ground. It remains at 2.4 on year-over-year headline. 2.4 really is to find a lower number. You're going back to April of last year at 2.3. To find a higher number, you're at December of last year at 2.7. Just to give you some context there. Now, in my opinion, the most important number, year-over-year core, remains at 2.5%. We finished off last year at 2.6. The high watermark recently was 3.3%. That was also the start of last year, the high watermark. Now, I like to do the indices because I think it really drives home the point of compounding interest and how that works against us in making progress. Even if we go low inflation levels, you don't reduce what's in the rearview mirror. On the headline index, which started in 1913, the current read is 326.78, never been higher. Now, if we look at that index on a core basis, which started in 1957, it comes in at 333.51, also has never been higher. And I underscore how important that is, because if affordability becomes an issue, we have to underscore the compounding nature of inflation that started basically right around the COVID period and all the money that was spent to try to combat that. But in order to reduce the compounding nature, which puts prices well over 20%, pre-2020 comparison, you need to have negative monthly numbers, and I just don't foresee that anywhere in the near future. Now, how did the markets react to this, Andrew? We're up about a basis point in the 10, almost at 418. That would be up 2 basis points. 360 in a 2-year hasn't changed much. Rates started to move up yesterday as Amazon launched and eventually priced on the U.S. side, because many were making room in their portfolios by selling treasuries. Andrew, back to you.
All right, CPI, that's what we got, folks. Not too bad if you are just coming in 2.5 versus 2.5 expected on the headline. Or sorry, that's for core. 2.4 was on the core. Let's get a little deeper into these numbers. The index for shelter was up 0.2% in February, was the largest factor in all the items monthly increase. The food index was up 0.4%. Food away from home was up 0.3. Index for energy was up 0.6. Index for all items less food and energy rose 0.2. Indices that increased over the month were medical care, apparel, household operations, airline fares, and education. The ones that decreased were motor vehicles, used cars and trucks, communication, and personal care. 2.4 is what you've got on the headline. 2.5 is on the core. The probability for a rate cut, which will happen on March 18th in terms of the latest FOMC meeting, which is, I think, one of the last 3 meetings that Jay Powell will have in 2026, 0.7%. 0.7%. So it is less than 1% at this point. So this CPI was not convincing enough for the market to be excited about this. Is the market falling? We were flat. Are we now red? We're red by like $1 on the S&P, down about 0.3. I mean, I wouldn't say that's really falling or dumping per se, but yes, it is going a bit red. Seeing some red candles across the board. Aero Environment didn't have the best earnings. That stock's down about 10%. Oracle did have a good earnings. We'll talk about that. That stock's up 9.6%. Everything else is kind of flat. Reddit's up a little bit. Mercado's up a little bit. Joby's up a little bit. Amcor's up a little bit. I mean, really at 9:30, we'll see how the market reacts to everything that happened yesterday. But in terms of the CPI number, it wasn't horrendous and it wasn't amazing. So I don't know if you're just going to get like a massive reaction to the upside or downside. HIMS right there is down about 1%. Oracle is up 9%. Nvidia is now flat. That's what we got. That is what we got on CPI. Again, we'll see if we can get some more analysis on kind of how these numbers look like, and we'll get a bit more data right here. But looking at it, shelter was the kind of core increase. Energy was a factor. It wasn't the largest factor. I thought it would be. Well, maybe in March that happens as oil prices are rising this month versus February. But, we started to see a bit of a rise in February. Seems like energy was less of an indicator versus shelter. And shelter is the broader issue. The gasoline index was up 0.8% month over month. The energy index in general was up 0.6%. And the index for natural gas was up 3.1%. Electricity was down 0.7% in the month of February. All right, let's get into everything else happening in the markets. Again, good morning. Thank you all for being here. We are here early because of CPI. These CPI prints were a lot more interesting back when inflation was 5-6% in 2023. And I remember waking up for those, and you would just be hoping we would get in a little bit lower. We're now at a much more tame level, although unfortunately rate cuts need a much more sophisticated level of inflation going down in order for this to really pay off. But regardless, it is nice to see at least some level of downside momentum on inflation coming in line with expectations. 2.4 versus 2.4 on the headline. Are these numbers cooked? I mean, it is a little weird that it came exactly in expectations, given PCE and PPI were worse than expected. So, I mean, I don't know. Obviously, time will tell, but the market can only go by the numbers they're getting. And if the market thinks that these numbers are coming in line with expectations, then that's what we got with CPI. All right, let's get into some headlines. The first thing to talk about today is Nvidia and Nebius. Nvidia is investing $2 billion into Nebius. They invested $2 billion into Lumentum last week and Coherent, which ironically both of those got into the S&P 500. Nvidia will have 5 gigawatts of their new systems. I would imagine this is Vera Rubin being deployed by Nebius until 2030, and that's why that stock is getting a bit more momentum right there. Again, I really like to see this primarily because the interesting thing about Nvidia is that they've had a very good relationship with CoreWeave, and some of the other neo clouds they've partnered with, but they haven't necessarily developed a full-scale commitment with. And so it is nice to see that they are actually showing some level of excitement, particularly around Nebius, which is just a different neo cloud. And they're kind of diversifying, saying, hey, we need a lot of people to help us with this AI build out. In order for this AI build out to be successful and for it to work out, we're going to have to put some equity into them, some money. And that's what you're getting. Nebius right there, 106. That's up 10% in the pre-market right there. Now, the thing for Nebius is it's got to hold, right? The issue with Nebius is it's never been able to really hold these gains. It kind of falls back into that $90 range. So the Oracle earnings, which we'll talk about, definitely were an increase of excitement and momentum as well for the overall data center space based on what they said, which is another catalyst for Nebius, CoreWeave, Iren, Cypher, APLD, etc. But, they actually got to be able to hold on to this momentum. 10% right there. Nvidia, which also had a great day yesterday, up 1%, 184. That is flat now in the pre-market as well. For those asking for the Chicago meetup link, let me just put it in the chat. Again, this is not the link to buy tickets, but this is the link to just show that you are interested in coming. And we just kind of need this to be able to book the venue. So if you do want to come to Chicago, pinning that right there at the top of the chat. And it should take 30 seconds to fill out, and then I'll have more details in the future. All right, so let's talk about what happened yesterday before we get into Oracle, because yesterday was also kind of crazy. And yesterday we had a big market swing to the upside. We thought we were going to have 2 days in a row of green, and it ended up going then to the downside. And there's a story for what happened. So the U.S. Energy Secretary, Chris Wright, ended up posting a tweet that said, there will be a ship, or there was a ship from the U.S. that went through the Strait of Hormuz, and the market started rallying. Crude oil fell below 80 because the idea was, wait a second, Trump just said the war is coming to an end soon, and now we have ships going through the Strait of Hormuz, which Iran has been, very hostile in terms of letting ships in. So maybe he's right. Maybe there's actually going to be some excitement in terms of the war coming to an end, and maybe there is a deal that is like really being negotiated. And then, unfortunately, he deleted the tweet. And as a result of deleting a tweet, the media picked up on it immediately and was like, hold on, wait a second. He deleted the tweet, even though we thought he wasn't going to delete the tweet because we thought the ship had actually passed the Strait of Hormuz, which means maybe there's more tensions than what we think. And crude oil jumped 10%. This is what Carolyn Levitt had to say as soon as that entire situation broke out.
You explain why the Energy Secretary posted and it appeared to have deleted a post on X saying that the U.S. Navy escorted an oil tanker through the Strait of Hormuz?
Yes, I was made aware of this post. I haven't had a chance to talk to the Energy Secretary about it directly. However, I know the post was taken down pretty quickly, and I can confirm that the U.S. Navy has not escorted a tanker or a vessel at this time, though, of course, that's an option the president has said he will absolutely utilize if and when necessary at the appropriate time.
And if this was something that was posted erroneously, could it be because of a staffer? What, I guess, will there be any consequences for this? I know you still have to consult, but just generally speaking.
Again, I would defer you to the Department of Energy to answer that question.
And if I could just follow up really quickly,
Sure.
In terms of oil.
Okay, so apparently the ship didn't go through the strait. Now, there has been a lot of information over the past 12 hours about different ships getting through the Strait of Hormuz. It might not be exactly U.S. ships. None of those countries have necessarily taken the U.S. on their offer to be escorted through the Strait of Hormuz because, again, they don't want to have any Iranian retaliation. And that's what kind of got crude to go down and or crude to go up. And crude oil prices right now in the pre-market, I think we're back at 90. We are at 85. We were at 90 last night. We are now at 85, 85.26. We were below 80 last night. This is actually not the worst situation in the world, given we were at 120 a couple days ago, like literally a couple days ago. So it's actually nice to see this coming down meaningfully. But the fear here now is that, okay, Trump said the war was going to end soon. The markets calmed down. You know, the S&P was pushing below 660. We ended up getting the rebound. Oil 120. Now it's back down to 85. But if there is no proof that the war is actually ending soon, then maybe oil will continue to spike higher because unfortunately there will still be some ramifications of that strait not being closed necessarily, but definitely not allowing the outflow of oil that used to flow through. And then obviously, you know, the broader market sentiment around geopolitical volatility will increase if the war is not over soon. What is soon defined as 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 4 days? No one really knows, but that is why the market took a hit yesterday. And again, the hit ended up being a flat day, which is good because, you know, the previous day was green. So we ended up kind of falling back into line. But we weren't able to build any momentum. S&P 500 right there down 0.25%. CPI coming at 2.4% versus 2.4% expected. And so today was supposed to be the third day in a row to see if we could build at least 3 green days in a row. Unfortunately, we were not able to get that second green day in a row. So it might be hard to get that third green day. But we are going to restart today and see if the market is able to move on. If we get any headlines that kind of prove more conclusively that this war is coming to an end, based on everything I've seen over the past 24 hours, I mean, it doesn't look like it's ending anytime soon. Obviously, there's been a lot of reporting by the Wall Street Journal that, hey, you know, Trump is looking for an off-ramp. Even the Israelis, the Washington Post reported, are looking for an off-ramp as well because they've realized that things are getting a bit more violent in the region. And, you know, they kind of don't think they can fundamentally finish the job or get everything they want to get. And what does finish the job means? That means regime change. And I think Trump even was asked about it yesterday, and he acknowledged, you know, I'll be willing to change the regime if the people cooperate, which is even him conceding, you know, there might not be a regime change, and it is what it is. The market wouldn't care if there is or there isn't. The market just wants the thing to end. But time will tell if we actually get this to end anytime soon. Aero environment right there, that's down 11% in the pre-market. You got IREM, that's up 1.7%. Again, Nvidia is investing $2 billion into Nebius, and that's why you're seeing Nebius right there up 10.6%. CPI was 2.4 versus 2.4 expected. We started early today because we had CPI. And we got CPI, and it was good. I mean, kind of a nothing burger, but, you know, definitely not the worst. Let's get a little bit more analysis on this. It's just we got to be happy this is not 2.7, 2.8. Because the market, with everything going on with oil prices, cannot take higher inflation outside of oil being factored into the situation. So the fact that we came in at 2.4, I think, was pretty decent.
Still, this question was out there at the beginning of the year, January, February. Would they pass along additional prices? We do hear that anecdotally, but again, we question and say, look, companies can say a lot of things about passing along prices, but whether or not they do that. I have talked to people out there in the market who say they're getting killed on margins because they're not passing it along. And that is something that we may not see so much in the market. If you look, you need to look past those top 7 that have done all that, have had so many of the gains.
I mean, there's nothing the slightest bit. The yields didn't go down. They're up, as Rick said, a couple basis points. And the market now is, I think it was down 30 or 40. It's now down 150.
I'm going to engage Rick on this, if you have a second, Joe, which is, Rick, I don't know that we should get excited about any movement in the 10-year that is between 4 and 420. Yep. It seems like that's its natural where it's going to be, and it doesn't. It's full of sound and fury signifying nothing, I think is the quote.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, it really is quite amazing when you think about how squashed, how compact the range has been. I couldn't agree more with that statement. And I really think that the biggest driver of information that I'm getting from the long end is how hard it is to keep a 10-year under 4%. That is pretty amazing. And I agree that really above 4.25, below 4%, that's when you're really supposed to start paying much closer attention.
It's good CPI print. It was enough for us to get more momentum. And that momentum, hopefully, when the market opens, even though we're not going to get a rate cut, can at least calm down some of the fears that we had about inflation spiking up. And even if it doesn't, hopefully we end up staying flat in this environment. At least if we can kind of stay in the range, that would not be the worst thing in the world. Nvidia down a little bit in the pre-market again. Nvidia invested $2 billion into Nebius. That's why Nebius is green on the day. That $2 billion also, to me, signifies a lot of actual, essentially, faith that Nvidia has in Nebius's execution, right? Because the reason they've been giving CoreWeave all this money is because CoreWeave has continued to execute. Now they've had some supply chain issues, but they have $70 billion in backlog. So Nvidia definitely feels that CoreWeave is able to stand up to the challenge of building out these data centers and actually bringing these clouds online. It looks like Nebius is next up to be able to get this investment. Now Nvidia has invested in Light, Coherent, Nebius, CoreWeave. I mean, it's not crazy to imagine they will be making a lot more of these investments in the future and just putting a couple billion into these different companies to help this entire AI build-out ecosystem play out. I do find it interesting that Iren has not gotten an Nvidia investment yet. And, you know, Nvidia sold all of their APLD, which definitely hurt the stock a couple of weeks ago. Nebius and CoreWeave are now the main beneficiaries of essentially the Jensen touch. I wonder, maybe Iren's next, or does Nvidia have a deeper issue with how Iren is executing? And, you know, I don't know. I mean, Iren did have to just do a $6 billion at the money offering. You know, if they had gotten a couple billion from Nvidia, they wouldn't have to have done such a big offering. So it's one of those things where I think we're going to find out over time which of these neoclouds are actually the winners. Bitcoin right there below 70,000. It was at 72. It's at 69 at the moment. All right, let's talk about Oracle. Let's talk about Oracle because they crushed it as well. Oracle's up 10% right here in the pre-markets. Again, CPI was 2.4%, came in line with expectations, which was good. Oracle also crushed it. I mean, it wasn't one of those like massive quarters where it's an Nvidia quarter where it's, oh my goodness, you know, the stock should be up 30%. But it was one of those quarters that calmed down, I think, a lot of the doubters on what Oracle was trying to do in regards to data center spend. And in particular, I think they put up the numbers in the guide to get the market to be excited. So this is what we had for Oracle. $90 billion guidance raise for fiscal year 2027, $67 billion for 26, $50 billion of CapEx. They're expecting to grow cloud revenue 44 to 48%. They essentially grew their infrastructure revenue last year at 78%. This was, they call it IaaS, infrastructure as a service, essentially their AI revenues. And total revenues, they're expected to grow about 20% going into next year. So as a result of this, I mean, I think you're seeing a lot more momentum in terms of the excitement for what the data centers have been able to put up. Now, Oracle on the call kind of made some pretty important claims about what they think is happening in the enterprise. So this was the first thing I thought was interesting. This is what the CEO said on enterprise SaaS. I've not yet met a customer who tells me they're ready to give away their retail merchandising system, their core banking system, demand deposit account systems, electronic health record systems, and that some small cobbling together of niche AI features are going to replace all of that. What they're asking us is how can we consume so much AI out of the box as you're putting into applications, and how can we get that up and live as quickly as possible, because we think that's the best way to actually realize value. These are highly complex, mission-critical systems with decades of industry experience, decades of regulatory compliance. Yes, we think AI is disruptive, but we think we're the disruptor because we're actually embedding the AI right into our applications and no additional charge. So instead of thinking AI spells out the death of SaaS, or at least for Oracle, I think it actually helps our SaaS position and helps us get to market even more quickly. I think they're right about this. I think most of us agree that AI is not going to be killing SaaS. It is going to be an accelerant to SaaS. However, there are going to be some SaaS companies that simply are not going to be able to grow because they are features, not actual products. And those features will get vibe coded away. But the sort of decades of data inside of, for example, electronic health record systems, with all the regulatory compliance that's involved in that, I mean, that's not going away anytime soon. Core banking, account systems. And if that's not going away anytime soon, AI is going to be an accelerant for that. It's not going to change that overnight. It will for some very small companies, but for the ServiceNows, for the Salesforces, for the Adobes of the world, that's not changing. And as a result, I think, you know, Oracle kind of calmed down some people yesterday on that. Now, what is changing is their free cash flow, as that went negative. This is a chart right here on Oracle's free cash flow since 2005. This is the first year you're seeing a negative 25 billion print on free cash flow, which is ugly to say the least. But if you believe in their ability to monetize this long term, then they're going to be okay. Now, their RPO also grew by 30 billion in 90 days. It was at 520 billion. Now it's at 550 billion. So they are continuing to get more and more customers to sign up, particularly to their cloud business. And as a result, if they're going to keep building out these data centers, those data centers, if they're going to be getting the demand that they think they can get, particularly based on that RPO, which I think is a leading indicator for what will play out, as long as all of that is not just OpenAI and as long as the relationship with OpenAI continues to be intact, then I think they're going to be in a good spot. So that's what we got with Oracle. They crushed it. They deserved the pump. I think it was kind of obvious they were going to get a pump as long as they didn't crap the bet on earnings, and they didn't, given the stock was down from 350 to 145 at one point. Stock now at 163 in the pre-market as well. They are guiding for 50 billion of capex. Larry really likes debt. Well, the other thing is he's levered pretty heavily to buy Warner Brothers. And, if Oracle fell 20% yesterday, that would not be good for his collateral in order to be able to finance the Warner Brothers acquisition. So you kind of needed this thing to not go south. And thankfully, this is now up 10% right here. Again, Nebius up 10%. Nvidia invested $2 billion in the company. You've got CoreWeave, that's up 4% as well. A lot of your AI plays are relatively flat to slightly green in the pre-market. Meta's down a bit. ASTS is up a little bit. Rocket Lab caught a little bit of a bid yesterday. Rocket Lab right here up again a little in the pre-market, ended down 4% after that whole oil situation happened with the U.S. Energy Secretary. And SAS continues to be red on the day. Healthcare also took a pretty big hit yesterday on some more news around subsidies. Molina took a 3% hit. CNC was down 15%. Oscar was down 5%. And so we'll see today if the second day of paying for those healthcare names continues. Now, AeroVironment, they missed on guidance for adjusted EBITDA. I don't know if that warranted a 10% decline. They also missed by 14% on revenue and 7% on EPS. So it's kind of a triple miss. And, after that downgrade that they got, they lost that deal recently a couple weeks ago. Or not even a couple, literally it was last week. I think it was last Tuesday. All of that put together, along with missing guidance, EPS, and revenue, it's going to result in the stock being down 11% on the day for AeroVironment, as that one's taken a hit. Redcat, that stock in the drone space, up a little bit, and then Ondas also was down. But that is slightly up in the pre-market right now. So that's what you have with all of your data center names, and that's why we're seeing some of these names go up and some of these names go down. When will the Warner Brothers acquisition take place? Well, realistically, it still has to get approved by the FTC. And there's going to be a lot of court hearings and lawsuits that have to go forward in order for it to play out. So I don't expect it to happen at least for another year. Maybe it happens earlier than that if they can get it through Congress. But it's probably going to take some time given the magnitude of how big of an acquisition it is. But it's, definitely been priced in terms of it not happening for Netflix and then it happening for Warner Brothers. Netflix as well, down about 0.22% as well. Let's do the red or green poll in the chat and see what people are thinking. Again, yesterday we were green for a bit until we went red, and that red was based on oil continuing to go higher. Micron is up. Micron has earnings next week. Micron is not up a ton. It's up 0.8%. South Korea actually had a great day yesterday. SanDisk. Dude, SanDisk, Samsung, SK Hynix, Micron, all of those have been massive, massive winners. But I just found out yesterday that Samsung is now a $1 trillion company. Samsung is now a $1 trillion company. And I couldn't believe it, but it's true. It is now, I believe, the 10th largest company in the world. 14th. So Samsung's up there. And EWI obviously is, the majority of it is Samsung and SK Hynix. And so it looks like that is not slowing down anytime soon. Are you making a position in Adobe before earnings? No, but I think Adobe is going to be a good play. Look, I think Adobe's cheap. I don't love Adobe out of all the SaaS names, although, again, I really do think it's cheap, and I think any good earnings should give it some momentum. But I think you have to really understand the business to be excited to hold on to this long term. ServiceNow, I thought, was also cheap. Salesforce, all these guys are cheap. It's just the Nvidia news yesterday about some type of new agent open source platform really got the street upset about the software names again, because now they think Nvidia is going to be competing with all these software companies for enterprise SaaS adoption. And I think on GTC next week, Jensen's going to basically say, hey, we're going to be working with these companies to integrate all of our tools together. It's not going to be us competing with Salesforce or Adobe or ServiceNow. But if it feels like that's the case, maybe that's where you could see a little bit more pain. So I think they'll be okay, but Adobe earnings definitely going to be important tomorrow. Nebius right there, still up 9.92%. CPI 2.4. 2.4 versus the expectations of 2.4. So it came in line. It's relatively decent. And as long as that continues, then we should be okay for CPI. Okay, so we talked about Oracle. We talked about CPI. Quick update from Robinhood Banking, which was really, really nice to see. So Vlad posted yesterday, they now have $1 billion in deposits and 65,000 funded customers. A month ago, they had 400 million in deposits, which means deposits are up 150%, and 25,000 funded accounts, which means customers are now up 160%. So pretty incredible to see the level of growth here. And again, the thesis for Hood, at least I think over the coming months until the market kind of gets out of this funk, is that until trading volumes come back in a way where the market respects and is more bullish on the high beta nature of those trading volumes, the other parts of the business need to grow. And the parts of the business that need to grow are parts of the business that are not rooted in trading. In this case, for Robinhood, it would be banking. And I mean, that, dude, in a month, 150% growth on deposits, 160% growth in accounts. There's, by the way, 27 million users. They have 65,000 accounts, $1 billion in deposits. So regardless of how the stock reacts to that, if you're really investing in kind of the core company, that type of growth eventually will be rewarded, even if it's not being rewarded right now. And it's very, very exciting to see that progress. So I thought it was really nice to see that from Vlad yesterday. Again, CPI right there, 2.4 versus 2.4. Market's kind of flat on the news, but that is the update that we have. That's not that impressive. I mean, okay. Dude, to go from 400 million to $1 billion in a month on Rob. We're not talking about Chase or Bank of America or JP Morgan or even SoFi that is a banking charter. Like, we're talking about a brokerage app that is offering a banking part of their platform. I don't know. To me, it's kind of impressive. And if they can keep up that growth, they're going to hit 10 billion in deposits by the end of the year in their first year of launching. Now, I don't know if they're going to be able to keep up that 150% growth month over month, but if they can even get to 20, 30%, it's going to be pretty massive growth. So hopefully it will be nice to see. Sean says, I opened my account this morning, connected direct deposit. Yeah, 50% of the people signing up did connect with direct deposit, which is money that consistently comes into the bank, which is good, for overall net deposit growth as well. Okay, so let's talk about some of the other stuff we've got going on in terms of different macro updates. So again, the Strait of Hormuz is continuing to catch headlines. You have a lot of conflicting reports over the past 24 hours of either ships going through or ships not going through. And yes, as we're seeing right here, there's different attacks that are being reported from the United Kingdom around vessels that were hit by unknown potential ammo. Let me pull this up right here by the UK. And this broke like 10 minutes ago in terms of this news. Yeah, so UK warship was headed towards the strait last night, and you're getting updates right here that as a result of some of those UK warships, and this was, we talked about this in the market close, that the United Kingdom decided that they were now going to not join the war, because again, Starmer is not really a fan of it, but that they were going to at least start defending and escorting different tankers that were going through. Here's the headline. 3 vessels were struck by projectiles in the Gulf waters. UK Maritime Trade Operations Center reports attacks on ships near Dubai and the Strait of Hormuz. A lot of this stuff is very confusing because we don't have exact evidence or details on what's happening, why it's happening. Are these vessels part of the UK? Are they not part of the UK? Are there the Saudi vessels that are now getting hit in a way that the UK is reporting on? But it is creating more instability in the broader oil ecosystem. Crude oil prices right now still at $85, now at 86. As you can see, those are inching up based on these headlines. And that's another thing that could be hurting the the pre-markets, even though we got a decent CPI. Now, the other big headline yesterday was Iran is essentially trying to mine the Strait of Hormuz so that if ships go through, they're going to get hit pretty badly. Trump tweeted last night, "I am pleased to report that within the last few hours, we have hit and completely destroyed 10 inactive mine-laying boats and or ships with more to follow." I haven't had too many updates on this particular quote, but the claim by the president is that we've already destroyed 10 inactive mine-laying boats, and we're going to try to go for more. Maybe this is true, maybe this is not, but Iran is saying that, look, we are ready to mine up the entire Strait of Hormuz if you guys don't, stop the attacks. And as a result, that's also creating more, I guess, confusion to the oil markets of like, hey, is this over? Is this not over? Or what exactly is going to be going on here? Here's the update from that last night when Trump was talking about the mines.
With more to follow, the president also said in an earlier post today, if Iran has put out any mines in the Strait of Hormuz, and we have no reports of them doing so, we want them removed immediately. If for any reason mines were placed and they are not removed forthwith, the military consequences to Iran will be at a level never seen before. If, on the other hand, they remove what may have been placed, it will be a giant step in the right direction. The president goes on to say, we're using the same technology and missile capabilities deployed against drug traffickers to permanently eliminate any boat or ship attempting to mine the Hormuz Strait. They will be dealt with quickly and violently, the president says. And guys, I just want to flag for you a comment from White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, because I think the significance of this is that it indicates the White House is trying to preserve as much latitude as they can for the president's decision to end this conflict with Iran. The president had said he wants unconditional surrender from Iran, but today Caroline Leavitt sort of redefined what unconditional surrender actually means. Here's what she said.
Well, when President Trump says that Iran is in a place of unconditional surrender, he's not claiming the Iranian regime is going to come out and say that themselves. What the president means is that Iran's threats will no longer be backed by a ballistic missile arsenal that protects them from building a nuclear bomb in their country. I could make an empty threat, but if I have no actions to back it up, then it's an empty threat.
So the argument Leavitt is making there is that unconditional surrender doesn't depend on the Iranians actually surrendering. It depends on the president determining that they're in a state of surrender based on military defeat and destruction of military capability. So I think that is important to know, just because it gives the president the ability to determine that really at any point. That's the maximum flexibility that the president had getting into the war, and clearly flexibility he wants to preserve potentially getting out of it at some point. We don't know when that point's going to be.
Again, a lot of reporting over the past 2 days that Trump is looking for an off-ramp to the war, and Trump himself has said that we want to end this war soon. So I think now the markets are just trying to figure out, is he serious about that? Are we actually ending the war soon, or is this something that's going to be going on for much longer than expected? But Trump did say yesterday we are trying to get rid of some of these boats that have more mines on them, just creating, again, more hostility around that strait, which is not the best for oil prices. Again, if you're just joining, Nvidia invested $2 billion into Nebius. That stock up 10.3%. CoreWeave up 4%. Nvidia basically flat. CPI came in at 2.4 versus 2.4 expected. And as a result of that, you're seeing the markets be relatively flat. In terms of this comment of Trump saying, they'll surrender when I think they surrender, this again is adding confusion, because I think the sort of double bind that Trump is in is either we go for regime change, which means we have to put boots on the ground, or we have to be much more aggressive than we are right now in order to legitimately change the regime and put in the regime that we want, which I don't know if, Congress is ready to approve all that, or we leave and we say we won, and we say that Iran unconditionally surrendered, but they still have the same regime in place. And if that regime continues to do what they're doing, people start asking, what was the point of this in the first place? And so that double bind is a little tough to navigate, because you could end this tomorrow and leave and say you're done, and then, okay, you start getting a lot of questions about why do we go there if nothing changed. Or you go full throttle and say, all right, time to get rid of the regime, but that requires a lot more military action that is going to just increase oil prices inevitably, because the Strait of Hormuz, once again, will be in trouble. And if it's not the Strait, it will be missiles that Iran launches against Saudi Arabian refineries that continue to output or continue to hurt the output of oil production. And so that broader mix of conflicts that Trump is in, I think, is creating more uncertainty in the market. Now, the IEA did say yesterday that they are proposing the largest release of oil reserves in history, exceeding the 182 million barrels that they released in 2022. The proposal was circulated at an emergency meeting yesterday. It will be announced today. Countries are expected to decide on the proposal today, Wednesday. The proposal will be adopted if no one objects, but even one country's protest could delay the plans. And the current stake of IEA members is 1.2 billion of crude oil reserves. I think the United States has around 200 or 300 million of that 1.2 billion. So if we do end up releasing a decent amount of oil, it will hurt crude oil prices today, which is good. But if that runs out in about a month, then the question is going to be, if this is not over by then and oil prices are still high, what happens to the broader economy? And I think that's what the oil markets, the equity markets are trying to figure out exactly how this will play out. So that's what we've got. Again, oil is up right here in the pre-market, up about 5%. It is down from those 120 levels, but 86 right there is what we have in the pre-market. Let's talk about Anthropic. Actually, a pretty interesting update that happened last night. So Anthropic's being designated as a supply chain risk. Microsoft came out yesterday and is backing Anthropic because they don't want the Pentagon to cut business with Anthropic because it's going to be bad for Microsoft. They're arguing that the Pentagon's action could harm Microsoft's business in the broader tech sector, which I thought was pretty interesting. It's almost like Nadella coming out and kind of playing some chess here, saying, hey, we know we compete with Anthropic, but we also really work with them. And if they end up becoming a supply chain risk by Congress, that's bad for our business as well.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. Microsoft making what in this environment arguably is a very unusual move. It is backing Anthropic in its AI startups fight with the Pentagon, which is more broadly with the Trump administration. In a court filing, Microsoft, in what's called an amicus brief, which is a friend of the court, effectively, saying a judge should issue a temporary restraining order that would block the Defense Department's designation of Anthropic as a supply chain risk for all existing contracts. Without an order, Microsoft warning that it and other companies would have to act quickly to change existing product and contract configurations used by the Pentagon. In November, Microsoft announced plans to invest up to $5 billion in Anthropic. It's worth noting a couple things here. There's about 130 developers in Silicon Valley that have also filed a friend of the court amicus brief in support of Anthropic. No other major tech company has done such a thing. I mean, we talk about, I always talk about CEO silence. This is a very interesting situation because Microsoft happens to be one of the biggest government contractors in the country. So when you start to think about what true retribution looks like and also truly standing up looks like when you actually care about what you're doing, they have more to lose, interestingly, than just about anybody else. Even more interesting, Amazon, which happens to be one of the earliest investors in Anthropic, reportedly in a meeting with Pete Hegseth, Andy Jassy, did not support Anthropic. And arguably, you could make the argument that he and other companies like his have been scared about standing up to this administration. So this is fascinating that one of the biggest government contractors. Now, arguably, I'm imagining that part of the sort of calculus to do such a thing is that Microsoft says, we're in everybody's business, meaning we are so locked in to the government, it is going to be very hard for Pete Hegseth or for the president to say, well, now we're going to rip Microsoft out of all of our systems, because that would be supremely painful. But I've talked about how I think this legal case is somewhat open and shut. And I think you're going to see, I think this could be a watershed in terms of others that are going to come forward.
It's not going to happen.
It is really interesting because Amazon has a higher stake in Anthropic than Microsoft. Now, Microsoft obviously does a lot of business with Anthropic, and Cloud Code is one of the core tenants that is involved in a lot of Microsoft's operations. And Copilot just got a collaboration with Claude. So the supply chain risk, which OpenAI also doesn't want this to happen, but it does look like the Trump administration is going to be pretty strongly defending the argument that they just can't have them inside of the Department of War anymore, is one of those things that could hurt business in a dramatic way. But it also hurts the valuation of Anthropic. I mean, these valuations are already a bit inflated for all these foundation model companies. Now they're putting up the growth to conceivably justify that they deserve the multiple. But if the growth stops, and I mean, if you're losing tens of billions of dollars of revenue from not only the government, but commercial customers that work with the government that now don't want to work with you. Like, if I'm an Anthropic investor like Amazon, I'd be a bit upset. And it's interesting that Jassy is not standing out about this. So, that entire thesis of buy Amazon to get Anthropic exposure, if Anthropic's valuation gets hit on this, which again, I don't think it's going to be massive, but it's something we have to monitor, then the sort of Amazon thesis on Anthropic exposure you have to question it a little bit more, right? Because the whole idea is Amazon's going to have this massive equity stake when Anthropic goes public, but if they go public and the valuation just doesn't have the financials to support it, then people are going to think twice of buying Amazon purely or even buying Zoom is a better example, which, the only reason Zoom's been getting bid up is because of their Anthropic exposure as well. So I imagine Anthropic will eventually find a way to navigate this. I wonder if the lawsuit actually goes in their favor, but if it doesn't, and the Department of War has a hell of an argument for why it shouldn't go in their favor, then OpenAI gets more of that business. And then Microsoft, ironically, becomes potentially the better exposure play because OpenAI simply might have a lot more revenue coming in through the door versus Anthropic. Is oil going down pre-markets? What are we seeing? Crude was at 86. Crude is now at 84. Okay. It's down a little bit, 86 to 84, but still flat. Thesis on Amazon is not purely for Anthropic exposure. Yeah, I mean, obviously the thesis on Amazon is much more intensified, but there are people that want Anthropic exposure, and their goal is to buy public proxies to be able to get that exposure. Now it's just more in question of what exactly that valuation entails. But, the Amazon thesis, once again, goes down to rising operating margins from not only robotics, but AWS accelerating. In order for that to happen, they need to also have a decent relationship with the government, because Amazon and Microsoft are two of the biggest government contractors, especially for cloud computing. If Claude's not allowed to be there, then, Amazon also has to think twice of if they can work with Claude effectively. Obviously, Palantir also has to navigate that as well, since they've been working with Claude for a long time. Anthropic runs on AWS. Well, that's my point, right? I mean, in terms of government deployments of Anthropic, that's not going to work if they don't get any government contracts, which means they're not going to be paying AWS as much money to be able to run on AWS if they don't have these multi-billion-dollar contracts with the Department of War or the IRS or the FDA, because now they're categorized as a supply chain risk. That is net negative for AWS. And so, I don't know. It's weird that Microsoft is coming to their defense versus Amazon, but, Jassy also probably doesn't want to deal with Trump as much as Nadella might be ready to deal with him. Oracle right there, that's up 10.6% as that continues to go green after a great earnings. And again, Nvidia invested $2 billion into Nebius. That stock is also up 9.8%. Question is, can we hold? Breaking through 110 would be very nice to see. The data center names are just so volatile. So when the market opens, we got to see, does this get dumped? Do people just get out of their position? Are they tired of holding? Or does this get bought up into strength? And we see a bit more exciting. I have Nebius covered calls that I put on yesterday. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't stress them out too much, right? Like if you're even at 95 to 104, 105 on your covered calls, remember the thing about covered calls is you have to let theta do the work for you. So let's say you have a covered call expiring this week at 104, stock's at 105. If you got $3 of premium, your break even is 107. The stock has to get above 107 for you to really feel some pain, because if it's within that range, you can easily roll this the next week or 2 weeks out, whatever you want to do in terms of protecting the shares. If you really care about protecting the shares, if it's within your break even, the rolling is not going to be that hard. If it's without your break even, then you got to give theta some time to see if, as theta decays and the stock potentially stabilizes in a range, your call loses value, which means it's also going to be easier to roll. So the way Nebius will mess up covered calls today, if it has a breakout to 120, which I don't think is impossible, but the last time it was at 120, it was like 6 months ago. Yeah, it was around October last time we were there. So, for it to have that massive of a breakout, it's possible. Again, it got rejected at 110 a couple of weeks ago when it tried to make that move. It's also contingent on CoreWeave and Oracle and Iran and Nvidia. Now, again, this is a big deal for Nebius today, getting that $2 billion announcement. But if Nvidia is not pumping, is Nebius going to continue to pump up 10%? That's going to be the question. And so in 15 minutes, we'll get a better understanding of this. What's going on with financials and why are they so bad? So we talked about this yesterday with Jason, and I continue to believe that the financials are right now getting hit with this private credit concern, whether it's justified or not. Ironically, you did have JP Morgan come out yesterday. And who's the head of JP Morgan? The guy who said there's a ton of cockroaches in the private credit world, Mr. Jamie Dimon. They marked down some loans held by private credit funds, which means they have less borrowing capacity against that collateral going forward. Once again, those loans are centered around software, where AI risk is starting to change how lenders view credit quality. Apparently, these private credit banks and institutions loaned out a lot of money and underwrited a lot of loans to software companies over the past 7 years. And as the public markets have shifted their perspective on software, the private markets are obviously going to do the same. And you're seeing another company outside of BlackRock, which withheld some of the redemptions last week, which was the major headline. That's why that stock was down 5%. That's starting to question what happens with private credit. So I think this is definitely interesting. And I've been trying to put together a lot of evidence and do a lot of research to deep dive into the private credit ecosystem. I do feel a KKR, an Apollo, a Blackstone are going to be obvious buys and get a really nice rebound when this stuff blows over. But, the broader question is, what if it doesn't blow over? What if it doesn't blow over? And if it doesn't blow over and you continue to have, 2008 level vibes in terms of the underwriting of these loans, which again are not as regulated as mortgages, mortgages have got more regulated since 2008, but private credit is really, it's not the average like the average person can get a mortgage. The average person cannot invest in private credit as easily. You kind of have to be part of the institution. You have to have more capital. You have to have better risk tolerance. So a lot of this stuff could go under and not necessarily hurt the average American, but it could hurt the borrowing capacity based on the collateral getting decimated by these banks, which means they can't give out loans as easily to people in credit cards and auto and student loans, which then does hurt the average American. And, long term, we're going to have to see if that ends up being as big of an issue for them. But SoFi is, bundled into that same issue. SoFi right there, 1830. Robinhood's been stuck around 70 to 80 as well. 78.27, that's down 0.3%. Ondas is up 1.8%. Micron's up 1.63. AMD is up a little bit. Broadcom's up 0.37. And then you have Applied Materials that actually had a partnership yesterday. That one is up 0.5% as well. Energy ETF XLE, that one continues to go down. Serve did have earnings today. Serve Robotics. This stock is up 14%. It does have a very high short float. Same thing with the HIMS. I don't think it's as high as HIMS, but it's up there. They beat on EPS, if I'm not wrong. They missed on, I think they missed on revenue. Serve Robotics right here, but that is up 14%. Fleet revenue was about $900,000. Full year revenue was $2.7 million. And the guidance they beat at $2.5 million was also part of their beat. Yeah, they missed on revenue, but they beat on guidance. And revenue still is up 400% year over year, though. So, it's not a small level of growth that we're seeing with Surf. Adobe, that's up 0.4. Amazon up 0.3. South Korea, that's up 0.3. Micron again up 1.7. And then Netflix, that is flat in the pre-markets as well. Again, Netflix made that massive move 2 weeks ago from 70 to 90. So I think it kind of chills out in this range until things turn around. But for now, it's going to be probably within the story. TSSI, did they have earnings today? This is one of the Dell suppliers. They are up 20%. Again, this is also a small cap, $318 million. This thing took a nasty hit last year. If you look at its chart, it got up to 31, fell all the way to $4. So you just got to be really careful with some of these names. Obviously, if they put up a good quarter, the street's going to reward them. And if they're small caps, they can move pretty heavily, which it looks like that's what you're getting for TSSI. But Dell had a massive, massive print, beating revenue expectations by $17 billion. Dell right there at 140. So it makes sense that TSSI is one of their main suppliers in Texas, get some of that momentum. And you're seeing that up 19% right there. Bitcoin, are we green? We are back to 70. Wow. That is about a $800 candle, 69.3 to 70.1. There you go. CPI, again, came in at 2.4 versus 2.4 expected. So you had a decent CPI. We are not going to get that rate cut in March, unfortunately. It doesn't look like we are, at least at this moment, showing the probabilities to get there. But it is decent to see CPI have an impact potentially on liquidity. The IEA reserve announcement was supposed to be 20 minutes ago. Did they say anything? I have not gotten an update from them. All we have is from yesterday, where they said they had to be a vote on Wednesday. Okay, so the proposal happened 3 hours ago. The vote, I don't think, is in, based on what I'm seeing. As soon as the vote comes in, then we'll have an understanding if the oil will be released. But, to be honest, again, let's say they do release a couple 100 million barrels of oil. It is going to have a very temporary impact on oil prices. And it might go down for a day or two, but the long-term implication of oil, actually sustainably going back down to the 50s or 60s, that's going to have to be the end of the war. So I feel like it'll help, but it's also one of those things where it'll buy us time. And if in that time we can't end the war, which again, Trump said soon, hopefully soon is less than a month, we might see some deeper pain. Let's listen to Julian Emanuel from Evercore ISI. They continue to have a pretty high target on the S&P and are bullish even with oil prices going higher.
4 years to the day, shortly after Putin went into Ukraine, you had the spike to 130, and then overnight, Sunday night, when we were all fixed to our screens instead of sleeping, you got towards 120. And then looking at the action on Monday, and we have to acknowledge that this is a different world, and this world is controlled a lot by retail traders. The volumes in the oil ETF USO were just absolutely off the charts, very similar to the peak in January in silver when the SLV volumes were off the charts. And commodities tend to top in fear-like patterns the same way stock markets tend to bottom. It doesn't mean the volatility is going away. And clearly this morning, we see that the volatility isn't going away, but the stock market is trying to digest the concept of more oil volatility, but now with a more defined upside.
But you're quant, obviously, and even during times like this, times of war, where there are real fundamental things happening, you think that technicals can help. So you think that a blow-off top, which we might have seen in oil, can even predict maybe that we're not going to retest 120? What if they mine? What if they mine the Straits of Hormuz and 2 months from now it's still closed? It's just hard to see how technicals can override the real world events.
Well, and again, from someone who was downtown on September 11, 2001, there's no question about the fact that real world events can override a lot of things. But again, think about it this way, right? If I had told you that oil was going to hit 120 back in December, wouldn't you have said to me, I think stocks are going to be down 15, 20, 25%.
Right.
And then same thing this morning, up $3, $4, $5. Stocks are down just a little. Frankly, it's a question of understanding the backdrop. We came in a good place economically. Earnings are very strong. That's supportive. But again, what it says is that 4 years into this bull market, even if we hadn't had what's going on in Iran, the left and the right tails are fatter. That is.
But you were even willing to say you don't think a recession is likely because you don't think we get to $4 gasoline, because we don't get to what you say the danger zone on oil is 93 to 97 is
right
where you hit $4, and you don't expect. You're willing to say that now that you don't think we get there?
No, I'm not willing to say that we're not going to test 93, 97 again. The other part of that is it's not just the level, but how long it stays there.
Right.
Okay. If you look at these past oil spikes, you need to stay there around 3 months or so to really cause the economy to drag. And, I think in thinking about what's most important to Americans, it's the prices they're paying for gasoline, for food, et cetera. And obviously, there's a certain inability to control events, but there is a realization that as we get towards summer driving season and summer outdoor grilling season, you've got to do, something to keep these prices under control.
Yeah, and I think Trump knows that as well, which is why, once again, I agree with Josh right here. What is to say that as soon as we go up, the oil backdrop goes away, there's no real bid on oil, it's all war premium. 100%. There's not really a meaningful bid on oil that's coming in because people want to be long oil. It's all based on hedging against the pain of a potential war. And the market was preparing for that after Venezuela. They saw that the United States was getting a bit more aggressive. And then obviously Iran happened, which kind of led to the climax of oil getting to these levels. Maybe it further spikes up back to 120 again if it doesn't end soon. But oil is a trade. It doesn't seem like an investment this year. And the trade has worked out very well if you've been able to time it before these attacks. But Trump, at the end of the day, like he does not want people paying $5 a gallon at the pump. And he doesn't want that being associated with him. Like, this is Trump we're talking about at the end of the day. Like, we know Trump. Like, he has an ego. He does not want people coming up to him saying, why am I paying higher gas prices after he ran for 4 years saying that I will lower your gas prices? He accuses Biden of increasing inflation every day. Like, there is no way inflation can accelerate to above 3% because of this war under his watch, and he would be okay with that. As much as, he might not want Iran to have a nuclear weapon, I think he would start to take some action. And maybe in the coming weeks, we're going to see him start to capitulate. I think the market is already trying to potentially price that in. 677.21 on the S&P as that is trying to go green. We got about 3 minutes until the market opens. Let's see what happens. What did you guys say on the poll on red or green? It was 419 yesterday, and I lived in Texas. I saw 399 yesterday in Jersey. 419 in Texas is kind of crazy. I had a couple people in California say it's already about 590 was the highest I saw from California. 60% of you say green today. 60% of you say green. Okay. 60-40 split. Let's see if we can get it today. Because if we don't, I see some people asking, are we out of the chop? I don't think we have any evidence that we are out of the chop. I mean, literally, past 48 hours, Monday and Tuesday, we're chop. Monday, down below 660, down to 680. Tuesday, get above 680, come back down to 670. It's a good swing for lows, but there's zero momentum that was built on top of the previous momentum based on what happened yesterday. Again, yesterday, U.S. Secretary of Energy Chris Wright posted a tweet that said a U.S. ship entered the Strait of Hormuz. Then he deleted it. Why is the mic on? Okay, hold on. We got to fix the mic. Okay, are we back? Are we good? Are we good? Let me know. 30 seconds. Good. Why does it randomly do it? Oh. Okay, well, we're good right before the bell rang. You guys almost got saved. You guys almost didn't hear the bell. You almost didn't hear the bell. All I was saying was we were stuck in the chop. Yesterday was choppy based on the energy secretary deleting his tweet. The day before was green, so hopefully we get out of the chop here today. You guys thought you escaped the bell today, but the bell will persist. Wednesday, March 11th, 9:30 a.m., the stock market is now open. Live S&P 500. How do we open green? 677.83. 677.83. That's up 0.08%. Nebius 104.99. It was up 10%. Now it's up 9.3. Let's see if we can hold above this 100 level. That's the most important thing. And then we'll see if we can get to 110 to see if there's more room for a breakout. Volume is 4 million shares again. Nebius invested $2 billion into it. Why is the mic still being stupid? Okay, hold on. Let me change the mic. Let me change right. They have it now. Yes. Let me know if we're good. Robinhood going green. SoFi going green. Nebius 105.76. Just switch the mic entirely. This should be better. Why is the mic being dumb today? Yes. Let me know if we're good. Okay, I think we should be okay. Microsoft right there, 408. As that goes green. Nebius right there, 105.35. Amazon 216. That goes green as well. Adobe 280, that is green. Netflix 97.75. Micron, that's up 1.7%. Ondas, that's up 1.4. Rocket Lab goes green. We're getting a pretty green morning. Nvidia 185.50, at least within the first minute of the open. We're going green. We'll see what happens over the coming hours. But at least on this first minute, we are seeing green, very similar to what we've had over the past couple of days before we had a little bit of a drop, but not a red open. Microsoft goes green. IGV, are we up on the day? IGV actually goes green. Software getting some more love, which is also not bad. TSSI, that's up 14% on the day. Why the hell is this mic not working? I do not understand what to do about this. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm just going to try to fix the mic again. Let's see. Okay, let's see. We're going to try this one again. I don't know why today it's being stupid. It could be better. If it's not the internet. I really don't think it's the internet. The internet seems fine. Otherwise, the stream itself would be lagging. Hood right there, 79.20. Serve is up 17%. We're just going to go with this. Most of you guys say it's all right, so it'll be all right. Microsoft 407, Nebius 11%. All right, so there you go. Now it is catching the bid. Yeah. They don't want me to talk about this more. That's what's happening. All right, so Nebius right there catching a bid. Let's check resistance at 108. Let's check resistance at 108. I know that's the core level of resistance. It wasn't able to break not last week, 2 weeks ago. 108 is where it got stuck. It briefly touched above it. 108 resistance on Nebius, it's like 1,000 shares. It's nothing. It's really not much. So if it can get above 108, you might have some blue skies right here. Redcat, that's up 1%. Rocket Lab, 69.50. That's green. Oracle, that's up 12%. You've got CoreWeave, that's up 5% as well. Marvell, is that moving? Marvell is moving as well. What about Oracle? Oracle, wow. Almost 170 for Oracle. Last night, we're up almost 14%, 168. This one getting back into some momentum again. They raised RPO by $30 billion, 520 to 550. So the street seems to be liking that. S&P once again going green. Robinhood trying to touch 80. SoFi 1871. Nebius 107.70. Trying to break through that 108 level of resistance. Microsoft, where is Meta? Meta is also green. That's up 0.38% on the day. Nebius breaking through 108. Breaking through 108. Dude, guys, I don't know what's going on with the mic today. Like, I will switch the mic again. This should be better. Then this is not me. I'm sorry. This is I can't control this. This might be StreamYard. It might be Ron. It's not a Ron, but that would be kind of crazy if it is. Let me know if this is a little bit better. I don't know why it keeps going in and out. I really don't. Yeah, I might have to restart my computer, but that's not really possible right now. Micron right there, 409. Got Redcat at 1.4. This one's better. I'm just switching between my good mic and my computer mic, so I don't know why it's making me switch back and forth and randomly being weird, but okay, at least it's better now. Grab a little green right there, 388. Bitcoin 70.6. This one was at 69.5. 69.5. That's at 79.6. That's up about $1,000 since we started the open. Okay, so Oracle and Nebius are the real story today. Oracle and Nebius. Oracle right there, 170 on the day. There you go, breaking through at 14%, 17% on the day, or sorry, 14% on the day, 170. And then Nebius breaking through 108. Dude, Nebius is trying to go for 109 at this point. 109 has 17,000 shares. 17,000 shares to get through and get some momentum. 108.95 right there. IGV, that's up 2.2%. The S&P still flat. Dell 147. Pretty much everything going green. I mean, what's red? You have some of the photonics plays that are red. AAOI, that one's red. What about Light and Coherent? Light is down 5%. Coherent is down 6%. Why are all these going red? That's weird. All the optics plays going red on the day. Broadcom also going red, which does a ton of stuff in optics. XLE actually going green. Airbnb, that's up 1%. CrowdStrike getting a move right there, 3.3. I don't know if we had an earnings upgrade last night, but 2 weeks ago they had a great earnings and they got a couple of upgrades. JP Morgan, I think, has them at 557. Morgan Stanley got them to 510 yesterday from 487. CrowdStrike now getting some love. How about Tesla? Tesla is green, 410. Tesla is greeny green. All right. 2.7 on Tessie. Nebius 109 breaks through. 110 is going to be the most important level of resistance that it couldn't break through last week. If it gets to that today, I mean, I think there is some more excitement. Now, if it closes above 110, I mean, maybe, just maybe, it's going to be able to hold these triple digits. Micron's up 1%. Netflix is up 0.5%. Redcat's up 2%. Rocket Lab's up 1%. Nvidia trying to touch 186, 185.60. CoreWeave also 6% move with Nebius on the day. I mean, Oracle did what they had to do, and it looks like they got the market excited. Bloom Energy, that was up 8% yesterday, up another 4% today. Circle, look at that. Circle's been the best crypto play all year, 122. That is up 3%. BTC going for 71. Ethereum is also trying to hit 2,100. Kraken Robotics, this one caught a bid yesterday based on the idea of what they could do potentially for demining technology after Iran came out and said they're going to have a ton of mining or they're going to put a ton of mines in the Strait of Hormuz. So that's why that one also got some love. Bitcoin right there, 70.8 right now. And it continues to see some momentum. Redwire is up 12%, or not 12%, up 1%. Lunar is up 2%, so the space name's getting some love. ASTS, that is also green, up 1.1. Okay, I mean, so at least for the two major things that happened over the past 24 hours, which was Oracle earnings, got the market to calm down on data centers. Oracle right there up 14%, $20 from the close of yesterday, and then this $2 billion investment from Nvidia into Nebius, and then the CPI coming in at 2.4 versus 2.4 expected. You put those three together, maybe we get some updates on the war ending soon today, or ending sometime soon, and maybe we can build a little bit of strength. Nebius right there going for 110. It's like 10 cents away, 4 cents away. Let's see if we can break that level. Klarna, is that getting a pump? Klarna is getting a pump. That's up 5%. They had a pretty crappy earnings, and that one got hit. But Klarna getting some love right here. How about HIMS? We had 23. We were at 25. HIMS, dude, if the short squeeze is actually legit, HIMS should be a $30 stock. And again, this is a $5 billion market cap, price of sales of 2. If it's actually 40% short and the shorts are legit covering, it shouldn't have a problem getting above 30. So it's nice to see it at least getting some momentum, up 5.3. Nebius, did we touch 110? We did not touch 110 yet. Meta is also green at 654. SoFi actually getting some love, 2.3 today, 1873. I think that's all the banks that are kind of going with it. JP Morgan is green. Bank of America is slightly red. You had XLF, which is also basically green. It's down by 1 cent. So the bank's recovering a little bit. How about KKR? Private equity is also up. And private credit. Blackstone, Ares Management. Blue Owl's down again. SoFi's going the opposite of them. And then Apollo is also green. What about the Mag 7? Mag 7 are green except Google. Mag 7 are green except Google. Nvidia 186, Tesla 408, Amazon 216, Apple 261, Microsoft 408. Microsoft was almost below 400 yesterday. Meta hit 630, now it's at 650. Google is the only one that's red on the day. ELF was down 10% last week. ELF's up a little bit at the moment. BTC is pushing 71,000. Now, this happened 2 days ago. On Monday, we were at 72. We actually had 74. And then we ended up falling back to 65. So 71 right here is a nice little rebound. But once again, hopefully it can actually stick. Ethereum right there, 2,080. BMNR is at 2140. That's up 3.1%. Redwire is up 1.3. And then Bitcoin again at 71,000. All right, 11 minutes in. I guess the question, do people think we can hold this green? The core headlines around data centers are bullish, and the CPI was bullish, but I don't really trust the pump until we actually, see if that pump can sustain itself. Let's pull up a couple of things right here, get some more macro updates. Hims is going for it. Looks like she wants to really make that move. 24.90 as that's up 6%. One Trump tweet and it's over. That is also true, unfortunately. Trump was tweeting this morning all about a bunch of Republican senators he doesn't like and representatives like Thomas Massie. So he didn't have any war tweets this morning, but you had a bunch of tweets about senators that he's not a fan of. So we didn't get any other crazy market moving tweets yet. Nebius, did we hit 110? There she is, 110. There she is, 110. Oracle definitely giving it the pump, up 14%, and that obvious Nvidia $2 billion investment giving it the pump. Now, the thing is, Nvidia, which is making its move right here, potentially 187. Nvidia invested in Light and Coherent, $2 billion as well, and both of those stocks are down from when Nvidia invested in them. So the market reaction usually is green on the pump. The question is, again, just can we hold on to it? And if we do, then maybe Nebius does not have to see below 100. But Iren, I think, is the biggest takeaway from this. Iren up 6%. They're one of the only neoclouds that hasn't got the Jensen touch. I mean, even Applied Digital got it after Nvidia ended up selling their stake. But Nebius and Corey were kind of the core that are in prime position for this right now. And maybe Iren is next. Maybe they are. Iren right there up 6.5%. Where is CoreWeave? Are we green? CoreWeave is up 7% today. It was at 72 yesterday, at $80 today. As that is also green. Top fan, thanks for the super chat. We have OSS earnings next week. Will we be covering the call? If it's after hours, yes. If it's pre-market, probably not, but we will cover the earnings for OSS, and we'll see how they do. They've been getting a lot of good government contracts, a lot of good prototype contracts. They are a small cap, but edge compute continues to be a really good theme. OSS right there at $9.65. The fact that this stock has been holding that $8 to $9 range is pretty incredible as well, given how small they are. So next week we'll see what their earnings result in. Nebius right there, 109.79 a mid. I have a Nebius 104 covered call. I got $1 premium. Should I roll higher up? I'll lose money, but if I roll to the same 104 strike for next week, I'd collect 500 more in premium plus a choppy market. Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of different ways to play it. If you think Nebius can't hold these levels, you get to extend the premium for a week. You get to collect another $500. You get to also essentially hedge the downside of $6 from 110 to 104 and play the choppiness of it. And the other thing is, if Nebius really does break out to 120, 130, and you're stuck at 104, to keep your shares, you could roll it. You're not stuck at 85. You're within that range, so you can roll out many months and then just play the volatility from that perspective. So I think the real thing here, if you're in covered calls on not just Nebius, but any of these stocks, whether it's Nvidia, Oracle, is force the stock to prove to you that it wants to go higher versus anticipating that it is going to go higher. Because again, the trend that we've seen over the past couple months is that these stocks get a pump and then they end up fading. And maybe that changes, but if it doesn't, then you're kind of stuck in that same game. But the $2 billion investment in Nebius is super bullish. 111 right there, 15%. And if it was going to make a move, this would be the headline to make a move on, especially after the day that Oracle reports just really strong RPO numbers, making everyone think that the data center business, because they're not getting those RPO numbers from the database business, they're getting it from the data center business. And, that's the leg up of growth that the street is looking for. 14% right here on Oracle. Let's check resistance for 115 in general on Nebius. It's getting 111. 115, I think, is where most of the money is sitting at. 115, you've got about 100,000 shares at 115. At 112, which we are not that far away from, you've got about 8,000 shares. So a break above 112 does not seem that impossible. Oracle, 171. 171 on Mr. Oracle. SoFi right there, 1859. Redwire, that's up 1%. Circle is also up 1. Bloom Energy, that's up 4.3. Tesla, losing 410, but still at 408. Meta goes green. Meta goes green. Gonna wait till tomorrow before deciding to roll. Yeah, in general, I think waiting until expiration and letting the theta decay as much as possible is also not the worst idea. And you'll see, every day there's a new story, a new narrative, and being able to navigate those narratives means that you get the ability to be a bit more patient on these calls. Rocket Lab right there, 25 cents away from 70. Aero Environment just did not have the best earnings, although it is recovering. It was at 194, now it's at 206. 194, now it's at 206. Robinhood goes red. Bitcoin's up today, so it is kind of weird that Hood's going red. Bitcoin right there, 70.3. But again, Hood has been stuck in a range. And that range isn't really seeing the breakout. There you go, 112 on Mr. Nebius. Let's see if 113 is in play. 113 resistance, by the way, is it's not a lot. 14,000 shares. It's not a lot. 16% up on the day with Mr. Oracle, as that's up 14%. Let me see if we have any other news on the macro coming in today. We had CPI. Yeah, that should be pretty much it. We have some Fed talk later today. Again, CPI came in at 2.4% versus expectations of 2.4. And that was enough to kind of calm down at least some parts of the market. Crude is only up 1%. It's now at 83.70. So you're seeing crude go down. The 10-year, again, crude was at 120 2 days ago. 10 years at 4.2. So that one, unfortunately, not catching a bid yet. But it is down. Coinbase, this is 198. That's up a little bit. It was at 212 last week. Nvidia fading from 186.50 back to 186. HIMS as well, a little bit of a red candle, but still at 24.90. And then BMNR is up 1%. Let's check on our SaaS names and how they're doing. We do have Adobe earnings tomorrow. All of them are green except Intuit and Confluent. Everything else, even Palantir, 152, getting some love. Mongo's up, Adobe's up, ServiceNow is up, CrowdStrike is up. They're not up a lot. Salesforce is up $1, but they are green. Do we have PPI Friday? I do not think so. Friday, we have Jolts tomorrow. Oh, no, sorry. We have Jolts on Friday, and we have the PCE index on Friday. So we have Jolts and PCE index, but not PPI. Tomorrow we have initial jobless claims, so those Jolt numbers, job openings in America. That will also be very important. VIX, are we up? VIX is just turned green. Okay, so this is where you have to be a little careful now. VIX literally just went green, 25.05. As the VIX goes green, you tend to see high beta sell off a bit. This might be S&P just went red as the VIX went green. So the regular playbook of how this tends to happen every day is starting to come into shape a little bit. Now let's see if these other growth names end up going red as well. And if the VIX can catch a bid, if that continues to spike. CleanSpark, that's up 2.23. Elf just went red. Twilio just went red. How about AppLovin? That just went red. Silver and gold were up yesterday. They are down. Wow. Silver down 5% today. Look at that, SLV down 4%, and then gold also down 2%. Well, it kind of makes sense, right? Because inflation was better than expected, or not better than expected, but it came in line with expectations, which is good for like money printing. And we might have to print less money if inflation is stable. So gold and silver would negatively react to that. But it wasn't the best inflation print for them to be down 5%, which to me makes me think there's more speculation going on. Bitcoin as well, losing 71, now back 70.3. Yeah, this is an interesting one, as we're seeing. The cargo ship hit headlines are definitely being reported by the UK in particular, as they're saying 3 different ships were hit near the Strait of Hormuz. We don't know exactly if those are UK ships or if those are ships by other countries, but obviously, that continues to create more escalation. Nebius losing 112, but we're at 110, so still holding 14% on the day. And then Oracle again at 100. 169. What do you think is what's going on with Grab? Again, I will say what I've said yesterday. I went through a little bit more of the numbers last night, and just to kind of reaffirm what I'm seeing in the numbers. Look, on a valuation basis, and I saw this chart on Seeking Alpha that I also thought made sense. I'll link it, but I'm getting $7.50 a share. This person's getting $7.29, and they're being a bit more conservative than I am on the cash estimates. It does not deserve to be below $4. Why is it below $4? I really don't know. And so at this point, you either get out because you think it's an opportunity cost, which is totally understandable, or you look at the growth trajectory and say the story's taking longer than expected. But once again, not every stock you could buy is going to go up 10% tomorrow. And patience is a virtue. I understand if no one wants to be patient. I mean, I get it. When you see random $300 million AI supply chain bottleneck companies go up 100% in a month, it's annoying. But you got to also ask yourself, what type of investor are you? Do you really believe in the long-term potential of something? Do you want to be allocated to this, or do you need those gains tomorrow? So for me, I continue to believe the stock is severely undervalued, but the shorts are in control right now. And if the shorts are in control, that means it's going to be dead money. And you either navigate that or not. I do think by the end of this first quarter, so talk about June, I want to see where the stock is. And if the stock is still stuck at these levels, then it might become a deeper question around the C-suite and how much they care about getting shareholder value. They've given their growth guidance, which I do think they're sandbagging, which is still, even on the sandbag guidance, if you put the numbers in, you get to around $7.50, $8 a share. The analyst yesterday, Citibank, came out, they reiterated their 720 target. But at some point, does the CEO call up all these big institutions and try to get them to just buy the stock and promise them more growth to be able to get them to buy into the story? I don't know. It's already having an 80% float, but I do not think it deserves to be at this level. Zeta right there also going slightly green on the day, 1842 as that screen as well. Yes, they do have $500 million in buybacks that they will be able to allocate as well. I'm not a fan of the buybacks because I think they should be taking the money and growing the company at this stage. The buybacks are whatever. It would be nice to use it on buybacks, but to me, I think there's more stuff they can do outside of just the buybacks itself. So we're going to see. We are going to see. But I think after Q1, if the stock is still stuck, then it's not a company thing. It's a stock thing. And sometimes you don't want to be in a stock that's stuck and you got to get out. But I think everyone has to make that decision. If I get out, I will let people know. I've not gotten out. I continue to be in. It's essentially classified as a long-term investment for me. So I'm not looking to put that money somewhere else. But time will tell if that one can actually finally get the breakout. Microsoft right there, 406.81. The photonics plays, I think you're right. There's a headline here that Broadcom might have said some stuff this morning that is getting all of those Lumentum, AAOI, Coherent to get hit. I don't know exactly what Broadcom said. Broadcom is a massive player. Oh, wow. Broadcom introduces a new optical chip this morning. It looks like this is your reason, folks. And again, those names are not super red, but they definitely are a bit red. There you go. Now, again, I don't know if that's necessarily a bearish thing for the other optics plays. Broadcom does compete with them, but they also work with them. So maybe that headline right there on a new 3-nanometer chip is potentially creating some headline pain right there. Robinhood 78.25. That also goes red. The longer it takes, the more violent and higher the upside once the market catches up. Yeah, I agree. But I also understand, people are impatient. And again, we talked about this like earlier in January when I kind of was thinking of 2026 strategies. Like, what really is your time frame, right? Because if you're long Southeast Asia and you believe that there's just this massive growing population, growing GDP, and Grab is really taking market share, which if you've kept up with the story, I mean, every other competitor, Food Panda just left Thailand. There was another one that was owned by Lyft that just left Vietnam. Like, a lot of the region is consolidating. And although it takes time for the margins to catch up, that's the story. That's the thesis. Either let that thesis play out over the next couple of years, or you get irritated in the short term, which is totally understandable. But, Hood took a long time. Palantir took a long time. Some of these names, they just need a couple of years of maturation to get there. It's just right now the thematic that's getting everyone excited is the AI bottleneck, the supply chain for AI bottlenecks. And Micron and SanDisk kind of set the world on fire when they showed how much the suppliers of inventory that goes into the chip, in this case memory, could end up catching a bid. I mean, Micron's a $460 billion company. But the criticism of those names is that they are, once again, cyclical. I know that's not the best critique of them, but that is why these stocks' forward PEs are still below 20. I mean, if they would be well above 20 if people believed in that long-term growth. But, you do have people saying Nvidia comes out tomorrow with some new innovation on memory, and then boom, memory stocks are hit, even if that claim, is not actually going to happen. Ren right there up 7%, CoreWeave up 6%. And so a lot of those smaller names, will they be able to hold up and become legit investments, or are they trades? And from how I'm seeing most people talk about it, they're thinking of them as trades. Like, I don't see people getting into a lot of these photonics plays as long-term investments. They want to pump and then they want to get out, which is totally fine. But that's, also part of the reason why the multiples continue to be compressed. Bloom Energy, that one's up 3.6. Tesla getting back to 411. Back to 411 right here. Navitas is up 12%. I don't see a headline on that. This one had a headline in November with Nvidia when it spiked up to 20. And since then, it's kind of been dead money. But same thing. Like, again, Navitas, part of the supply chain semiconductor ecosystem in this AI build out. They get a big move on an Nvidia announcement, and then they just crash by 70% and stay there for the past 5 months. I mean, look at this chart. It's disgusting. $5 to $17. That's the move. That's the, if you bought 100,000 shares at $5 and you get to sell at $17, you made some real generational money. But if you buy around that 15 to 17 range when most people catch up with the trade and then it goes back down to 6, it hurts. And, you might be seeing that across the board on a lot of these bottleneck plays as well. Bitfarms, is that green? That is up 5.5%. CleanSpark is also up 3%. Tesla also this year has been flat, hasn't really moved at all. In fact, I think it's down for the year. Tesla started the year at what, 450? Started the year at 438. It's now at 411. I don't see a single catalyst for Tesla coming up at all. If someone has one, let me know. But outside of earnings, I mean, Elon's going to have to make the catalyst, whether it's Optimus videos or, Robotaxi rollout expanding. And, Robotaxi has expanded nicely, but it's not like millions and millions of cars on the road. So Tesla's also been an amazing stock to do covered calls on because the premiums are great and it's not really fell below 380, which it was there for like a day or two, and then it spiked back up. Can you talk about the Amazon offering? Yeah, the Amazon offering was just more debt. So this was already known. The market didn't really react to it yesterday. It was at 202 last week, so it's nice to see this back at 215. They are raising, I think, about 30 billion of debt. They also have 50 billion of a mixed shelf offering that they can unload on people. So if Amazon does get to 230, Jassy can dump $50 billion worth of stock at 230, which probably is another reason the stock's going to be held back for the foreseeable future. But they are raising debt. They're giving a better yield on their debt than the 10-year can give. That's what Google is doing as well. And, as a result, they continue to use that money to then deploy it in their data center build out, which unfortunately is leading to their free cash flow going negative. Tesla right here, high of day at 412. But I think the street doesn't care that much. I mean, like at the end of the day, they need the money to grow. Google needs the money to grow. Meta needs the money to grow. So the street should be okay with it. Google going green, 309. 309. It was at 310 yesterday. We're seeing 309. Didn't Elon say Tesla would have a flying car last year? He did hint to a presentation in which they would show off a flying car. That didn't end up happening. But yeah, it would be kind of cool if they do that. Again, with Tesla, there's no growth in terms of the actual business itself on an EPS and revenue basis. There's a lot of sectors of growth that are there, like energy. But until they get back to growth, and remember what Elon said in Q3 2025, he said verbatim, do not expect the company to start showing positive year-over-year growth until Q3 of 2026. Now, again, the market has vastly overlooked that. Tesla trades at 200 times earnings because the market doesn't care about this sort of sequential growth. But at some point, if they were to put up real growth and you have the market excited about the physical AI ambitions of Tesla, maybe the stock really does get above 500. But I think you would need to see that year-over-year earnings growth for the market to be excited about that. Iran getting some sympathy off Nebius right there. Look at that, 10%. The VIX just dumped 5%. VIX just went to 2375. So I would not be surprised to see the S&P bounce back up maybe to 678. S&P 679. We already are above that. Let's see if we can crack 680 now. Oh, wow. Is this the headline? I think that VIX dump is based on this headline. Let me see if I can confirm this. It's from Axios. It looks like, wow. There you go. Trump tells Axios there's practically nothing left to target in Iran. Trump tells Axios Iran war will end soon. Quote, anytime I want it to end, it will end. And then you have the IEA members agree to release 400 million barrels of oil. Okay, so you have three things happening right now. You have 400 million barrels of oil that officially just got approved to be released. I'm going to pull up the statement for the IEA. And then you have Trump once again, this is the third time this week, telling a news outlet, the war is going to end soon. And now he's giving some context by saying there's practically nothing to target in Iran, which means if he thinks there's nothing to target in Iran, there might be some legitimacy towards the war ending soon. 678 on the SP, 400 million barrels of oil. This market moves on everything he says. VIX just dumped based on those three headlines. My state of confusion still rests in the idea of, are we having a regime change or not? Because if you don't like the current regime, I would imagine there's a lot left to target in Iran. If you're okay with the current regime, then you're not going to do any targeting, which is fine. But that also means that we're going to keep the same regime, which I just don't know if that's going to be characterized as a victory. Markets are not going to care, though. Markets going to be happy to move on. Julian says he says that, but I'm in Dubai and there are constant strikes. He's just bluffing. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if he could get oil prices to come down, that's been part of the PR strategy over the past couple of days, literally days, in terms of saying this war is going to end soon. 83.65 on crude. That one's still going down, but not at that $100 level yet. The way they frame this as a victory by not getting regime change, Tesla right there, high of day 415, is by convincing the American public that we got rid of their nuclear facilities. I think that's the way they would frame it, saying, hey, we didn't change the regime, so the brutal dictatorial regime that's terrorizing all of its citizens, we didn't do anything about that. That's still in place, but we at least aren't going to be worried about them having a nuclear weapon. I think that's the only realistic way they can justify why this special military operation was done. And based on these Trump quotes, it sounds more and more likely that they are not really going for regime change anymore, because that would require killing the new Ayatollah. Like, just to be frank. And I don't know if they want to do that again. Unless this new Ayatollah has turned into a liberal and is okay with women walking around freely, which I don't think so. So that is still the confusing part about what's going on. Iran right there, 9.64% up on the day. Axios now reporting officials prepare for at least 2 more weeks of strikes. Okay, so again, this is confusing. Trump just said the war is going to end soon. Axios now reporting White House officials are preparing 2 more weeks of strikes, which means I guess soon is not less than 2 weeks. Look, Trump can keep saying soon, but if we don't, if a month goes by and he keeps saying it'll be soon, at some point people are literally just going to stop believing anytime he says soon. Right now, the market's actually taking it seriously, which I'm impressed that the market is moving that. Like the fact that the market moved $1 trillion on Monday from Trump saying he thinks the war is going to end soon. I was impressed because I was like, hey, Mr. Market, like he doesn't always necessarily say the truth when it comes to this stuff, and he might be buying time. The market didn't care, and we needed it because we were at freaking 670 on the S&P, or just below 670. And so I wonder at what point do the algos just go, yeah, until we get actual confirmation it's ending, we're not going to end it. Amazon right there, 215. As that continues to be green. Nvidia, are we pumping? Wow, Nvidia getting some love on this as well. 187.30. VIX now at 24. 187.44. Where's Nebius? Are we still at 110? We are at 111 on Nebius. We shall keep monitoring the situation. Correct. And then yesterday, when the Strait of Hormuz tweet was deleted, the market went down. So like I was surprised on Monday the market went up so much because of what Trump said, and then I was surprised yesterday the market went down so much because of a Strait of Hormuz tweet being deleted. And now the market's going back up because Trump once again is saying the war will end soon. So at some point, maybe the algos stop paying attention to all these little things. But as of now, they are very sensitive, literally to the tune of trillions of dollars based on the potential of the war ending or the potential of the war continuing. Tesla right there, 413, Amazon 215, and then Google 309. Him still holding on to 7%. Nebius 112. Hims, let's see if we can get the breakout here. Got to get above 2550 now to also hold some of this momentum. Let's get some coverage on the IEA. 400 million barrels of reserve officially getting released of oil for the broader oil markets and energy markets.
Good morning, Carl. So the IEA saying just now they have unanimously agreed to tap 400 million barrels of oil from their emergency reserves. This is the largest tapping of oil reserves in history by the 32 member countries. Now, one important thing to note here is that we do have to see what the flow rate is going to be. The headline number here, 400 million barrels, the largest reserves tapping. But the question now turns to how quickly can those barrels get out of storage? It's not necessarily immediate. Also, we're waiting for details here on the extent to which it's going to be crude releases versus product releases, because that is going to impact how these markets trade looking forward. But WTI now here up some 2% as these 32 member countries announced the largest tapping of strategic reserves in history amid the disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz. Guys?
So, Pippa, just some context. That's about double what we got in 22. And you mentioned the flow. That's going to be an important number. But also mix is going to be important because some countries have crude to offer and some have refined.
That's right. So in Europe, it's primarily refined products, while in the U.S., it is essentially all actual oil. And what we're seeing here now is that it's not just oil. It is also very much a product story, given how much passes through the Strait of Hormuz and how key that area is for refining. And so the extent to which this trickles through to things like RBOB and diesel, both key, of course, for the economy, diesel known as the tax on the consumer, remains to be seen. Also, a lot of the diesel that's refined in the United States does come from those heavy distillate barrels out of Saudi Arabia. So we have to see what the mix breakdown is. And finally, just one thing to add, there is not an SPR equivalent for natural gas. So continue to watch TTF in Europe as well as in Asia, because Qatar's facility, Ras Laffan, being offline, that's 20%. And so that could be the longer term story here, even as oil prices come down a bit.
Pippa, just watching the market reaction to this, crude oil prices are up a few percentage points. Is it that it's not enough? It was baked in?
I think it was baked in to a certain extent. And of course, you know, we did have about a $43 or so swing between Sunday night's high and then yesterday's low. And so clearly there are a lot of, unknown factors here as well. And this was already baked in. And, we are up about $15 or so now since the end of February. So that is a meaningful increase. But of course, we saw that wild volatility yesterday as well as Monday. And so as more trickles out in terms of what's actually happening in the Strait of Hormuz, no doubt we'll see more swings in oil prices today.
Great, Pippa. Thank you very much, Pippa Stevens. And just to check on gas prices, which this is how it trickles down to the consumer, average gas price is around $3.48 a gallon. And we've noted the 20% increase since the war began and what that might mean. I just wanted to show you the long-term chart, though, to the context point, on gas prices. It's happened fast. It's painful.
Yeah.
You feel that, every day when you're driving. However, we're only at the highest level since, around 2023 or so. In 2022, we saw above $4 a gallon gasoline when we had that inflation spike. Remember when President Biden went out and tapped the SDR, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, because he was worried about those high gas prices. We got through it last time without a recession, and maybe that's why the market is telling you, Mike, that we're not barreling into a recession. Yeah. We don't know how long this is going to last or how high it's going to go, but also, it can feel shocking because it's happened fast, but we have been here before.
Yeah, I don't think it's a matter of this is going to knock the economy into recession. It's just going to be a counter force to what we were expecting, which was consumer tailwinds. Sure. And I think the market is actually kind of telling you there's some hesitancy about how much we should bank on that at this point. In fact, let's bring in Chris Ferrone, Chief Market Strategist for Strategas Research.
Okay, so this is decent in terms of the broad headlines. S&P right there touched 680 and then it got rejected. Touched 680, right back to being flat, 677. Still slightly green, but could not break above 680. Again, Trump saying the war will end soon. And IEA releasing 400 million barrels of oil. This is the largest they've ever released, which might buy us a couple of weeks, maybe a month before things get uglier. Crude now at 83. And that's why it's going down again, even though not a lot of ships are passing through the strait. The reason crude is going down is because the expectation from a forward-looking market is that, all right, if this war is actually going to end soon and we're releasing all this oil, then we're going to be okay. And, if oil gets back down to the 70s anytime soon, I think the markets would really love that. But do we actually get there? There's still too much risk for a full rally. I agree. I think that the risk of this war continuing is something that can't be priced out completely yet, even if the market's trying every other day to do that. One thing to remember, though, and this is something that we've been talking about for a while, is that the short positioning on XLK, the tech sector, let's pull up the heat map, is the high since 2016. And I continue to believe it's really hard to have an ugly crash if everyone's short and prepared for it, even if it's just being short as a hedge. So you can see right there, tech leading the way, defensive's going red, and definitely more risk on momentum with software and tech and semis going green. So, maybe we continue in the sideways action, but that much short interest, betting on some level of massive downside, the market might not easily give it to you, even if there's a war, when everyone's prepared for it. The China meeting is happening on March 30th with Trump. So he will still be going to Beijing. And, maybe this whole Iran debacle is going to be negotiating leverage for him to navigate different issues with the Chinese. But it looks like that will still be happening, and then we'll see how the market reacts to that as well. The other thing I thought that was really interesting yesterday is hedge funds are still pretty allocated to South Korean equities. Net allocation to Korean stocks is at 5%. Both metrics are up 400% year over year. So it's not just retail that is playing inside of KOSPI, which is the South Korean index. It's also the hedge funds, which is why there was a story in the Financial Times yesterday. I'm forgetting the name of the hedge fund, but they lost like a couple $1 billion over the past 90 days because of what's happened with oil. And so they might be trying to recoup some of their losses in more high beta stuff if they were positioned on the opposite side of oil, which means piling into SK Hynix and Samsung and all those names that might give them better risk to reward. But you do see that allocation continuing to go higher. Nebius 111, Nvidia 187. 187. Do you still have Tesla? Yes, Tesla is a position I have had for a while. It's a relatively small position compared to Nvidia or Hood or Palantir, any of those names. Again, the Tesla thesis for me is beyond robotaxis. It's that freaking Optimus bot. Like, that is what gets me so excited about this company. I just also, being realistic with myself, know it's going to be years away. And I hope I'm wrong about this. But I'm willing to forget about valuation and go deep into Tesla even harder if the robot seems like it's coming. But I don't think the AI is good enough yet. And I don't think the supply chains are built yet. And Elon, this is why they're stopping production of 2 different models to be able to ramp up. But it's still going to take some time. Which, when you have a company like Nvidia trying to get 20 times earnings next year, growing at 80%, it just feels like such a layup compared to taking a risk on something much, much more speculative at the moment. But long term, I think a lot of people think Tesla will be the biggest company in the world compared to all the Max 7s. ASTS, that's up 4%. SoFi's up 0.5%. AEHR, shout out to Roy Air Test Systems, that's up 7%. Again, another small cap inside of the AI supply chain ecosystem that is absolutely taken off. NEO is gap profitable. That's up another 0.5%. They were up 10% yesterday based on their earnings. Rivian also getting a little bit of love today. They were up 7% yesterday. And then SanDisk back to 629. Back to 629. What are you doing with BM&R? For BM&R, again, it's been a perfect stock to do covered calls on. So for me, I've been reducing my cost basis significantly every week by just running these covered calls. And, although obviously stock has been hit pretty heavily from October, the stock's been in a range. I mean, Bitcoin's been in a range. Ethereum's been in a range. The breakout on crypto is not really happening anytime soon, in my opinion. So once again, some of these AI stocks, some of these semi stocks, and then some of the SaaS stocks, they've just been in a range that you've been able to navigate with. The stocks that have been horrible to do calls on to be able to yield the volatility on are these small micro cap AI supply chain bottleneck companies, because those have gone nuclear. Outside of those, even Silver has been in a range. AppLovin, it's a $200 range, but it's been in a range. Robinhood has been stuck between 70 and 80 for like 2 months. CoreWeave, 80 to 90. SoFi has been one of the easiest stocks that has had covered calls on, right? So just not seeing that much breakout momentum on these names. HIMS is getting a move now. Let's see 26. Let's see 26. Let me check resistance. There you go, 26. There's the breakout, up 10.8%. On HIMS. Rocket Lab also up 5%. HIMS 27 resistance is about 2,000 shares. Not a lot. This feels like there might be a deeper squeeze right here. Planet Labs, that's also up. Dan Ives apparently likes the stock. He was talking about it yesterday. Planet Labs up 5%. BM&R up 2. Air Test up 6. Netflix is down, but basically flat. Oh, the updates on the Palantir Poly Market announcement came out yesterday. We talked about it for a little bit, but apparently they're going to be really helping with the insider trading stuff in terms of being able to scan databases and try to figure out if there's nefarious activity going on. So that is an unlikely collaboration. I didn't see that coming, but it makes total sense. Palantir right there, 153, as that's up 1.26%. Lunar's up 10. Some of the other space names getting some love. Microsoft goes red. Dude, Microsoft has just not been able to at all hold momentum. VIX spiking up a little bit, still red on the day, but spiking back up. S&P is flat. 680 to 677. So it's funny to see some of these individual names get a real big gap up. Even Nvidia breaking through 187. whereas the indices are flat. Oil is down slightly. The Q is basically flat. But you got HIMS up, you got Nebius up, you got Nvidia up, you even got Google up. Navitas, again, based on their headline, they're up 20%. Micron's up. But the broader market itself is not. SoFi 1844, Nebius, are we above 112? We hit 113. 115 is now the next target here. We can actually break through. Nebius, Iran, and CoreWeave, that $2 billion. I mean, it would, dude, if Jensen comes out and puts $2 billion in freaking Iran after doing it to CoreWeave and Nebius, I think the markets would be pretty freaking happy about that. At least Iran would definitely be pretty happy about that. STRC from MicroStrategy is also getting a lot of attention right here as it is starting to yield very well, and it's been starting to get a lot more volume. STRC closed at $100. The rate is now 11.5%. I still have no freaking clue how Jensen is able, not Jensen. If Jensen could do this, that'd be crazier. How Saylor's able to give an 11.5% return, but he's able to do it, and he's able to take that money and then plow it into Bitcoin and reduce his cost basis. So that is also getting a ton of more excitement. Nebius 114. Okay, we touched it. Now 115's on deck. Here you go. 17% move on Nebius. Volume is 16 million. 16 million shares. The trend looks like it's up. Trend looks like it is up. You do not see a break in the structure. It peaked a little bit below 110 for like a minute. That's when the VIX spiked. And then it came right back. S&P still flat. Still flat. What do you think about SoundHound? I don't get the hype on this name. The growth is good, but again, I don't know if it's worth $4 billion. But the growth is good. I don't know, dude. Like AI sound systems inside of different restaurants and things of the nature. Like, I think it's a cool story, but it's not that explosive AI growth thesis that exists for like a Nebius, for example. So I like it, but I also think the multiple you're paying is a bit aggressive. SoundHound got to $20 at one point, right? Last year, I think it was up there. Year to date, it's down 20%. Yeah, it got to $21 in October. So that one is definitely taking a hit. If people are ready to take 20x crypto leverage trades, then don't you think giving leverage is less risky for those people? That's a good point. That is a good point. I wonder how much leverage is in the crypto ecosystem compared to what we were talking about, which is October. I mean, October, it felt like, based on the explanation we heard from everybody, that there was a deleveraging event and it created all this downside momentum. Like, I wonder if the leverage is similar to where it was in October, or if it's severely decreased. Navitas up 18. Because if it has, which I would imagine it has, then crypto is probably in a better spot. If it's not, and people are still leveraging up 250x, then that's not something we want to see. Google right there at 310. Nvidia loses 187, then Tesla 412. Hood and SoFi just went red. SoFi was green, right? Wow, SoFi, literally, we were saying it's 1870, 1825. Within a matter of a couple minutes, that one goes red. SPY now actually losing 677. Microsoft continuing to go red. Amazon just went red. I mean, if Nebius can even hold above 110 today, that would be very impressive, given just might have the general market try to take it down as well. Uber did get an upgrade this morning. That's why Uber's up 3%. Uber's been another one of those names that's been just an amazing company, incredible free cash flows, undervalued on pretty much every metric you can look at. But market doesn't care. And, it begs are you a long-term investor in Uber, or are you just looking for a trade? Because if you're looking for a trade, it sucks as a trade. As a long investor, I think 5 years from now, Uber will be fine. But the upgrade they got was to 103 by Morgan Stanley today. I mean, the average price target on Uber, let me check real quick. Uber, 105.59. Off 32 analysts, 105 is the average price target on this. But it's just not really getting that same move. ASTS, that's up 3.5. 1030 slam, are we going to get it? Are we going to get it? Yes, Uber did announce that Zoox is coming to the platform with Amazon. But like the free cash flow multiple alone on Uber should be enough for this stock to be minimum 90. Like it should not be held down and need fancy PRs to get people excited. Now, people will point to the Tesla robotaxi as like the sort of bear case, which sure, but like there's a big argument that Uber could become a massive platform for robotaxis in general. Some people agree with that, some people don't agree, but you can't price that out completely because it hasn't happened. And then B, it's like the robotaxi is cool, but it's not doing 3 billion rides a month. Like we're not there yet. So until that happens, to discount Uber to that extent is, I feel, pretty aggressive. Oracle also losing some steam, 171 to 166. To 166. Amit, it's breakfast time. Put in the chat what you had for breakfast today. I didn't have anything. I didn't even have coffee. I was up early today, though. I think I was up at like 5:30. I got a lot of work done in the morning. Also, we have an interview coming out today. I finished editing it this morning with Shyam Sankar, CTO of Palantir, that I think people will like. So that'll be out later today. Again, we are not doing the market close today. We are not doing the market close, but we will have that interview out later in the day. And hopefully it will be a good one. So many of you guys eat eggs, bro. Like, I'm not a hater on eggs, but people love their eggs. Oatmeal. Gene says he's fasting until 12. Gene, I'm with you every day. Basically fast until 12 to 1. Frosted Shreddies. I have not seen those in a long time. Sardines, toast, protein shake. Yes, we do have Robinhood February metrics today after the bell. I don't think it's really going to affect the stock. At this point, I think the stock is more tied in with crypto, but we will get those February metrics. We already know a little bit about them based on what Shiv said, the CFO, last week. But we'll get more specifics today. Beer. You must be from Germany. Last time I was at a German airport, it was 7 a.m. and people were drinking. I was like, okay. I guess this is what people do in Germany. Early morning. Nvidia losing 187, but still at 186.50. Dude, Marmite, you're definitely from Australia, right? That's an Australian dish, right? Dude, this thing, veggie Marmite. I've heard of this thing. I've seen people eat this on videos, and I'm so curious to see what it tastes like. Vegemite. I'm so curious when I go to Australia. Is this an Aussie thing or is this a UK thing? I am so, because some people say it tastes like literal garbage, but the Australians swear by it and say it's the best thing on planet Earth. Yeah, see, a bunch of guys in the chat think it's gross, a bunch of guys think it's great. Vegemite. I am so curious. Michelle said I tried that in Australia. I wasn't a huge fan. Malaysia and Singapore love it. Well, when I go to Singapore, I want to try this thing. I've just seen so many mixed reactions to it. Micron's still up 3.5. S&P goes flat. S&P goes flat. Dude, if it gives me like a Mayo reaction, it's going to be on my list of just never touching. If it gives me a Mayo reaction, that's what's going to happen. S&P again, flat. We're not really seeing any movement. The Qs are up. Palantir's up. Kind of not really expansive market momentum outside of Nvidia, HIMS, and Nebius. Those are the three that are really, and Navitas. Those are the four that kind of took off today. Nebius just below 113. That's pretty much what we're seeing. You have to grow up on it to not like it as an adult. Vegemite is the High School Musical of food. Okay, that's crazy. That's really crazy. VG at least catching a bid. VG back above 12. As long as, I mean, I think most people here bought VG around 6 and 7. That's when I bought it. So as long as this thing doesn't tank to those levels, whether it's 10 or 12, I mean, if you're really long this name, it seems like most of us caught the bottom on this, which hopefully doesn't have to go back. Also, the arbitration case is now resolved, right? So that was like the big thing that got this thing to break out. Are you 9 years old? What do you mean you don't like eggs? I'm not saying I don't like eggs. It's never been I don't know. I've never been super excited about eggs. Him's right there up 11%. I do like eggs sunny side up over scrambled though. Like if I go to a breakfast spot, I feel like sunny side up is better than scrambled. I don't hate scrambled, but sometimes they get too fluffy when they're scrambled, and it's just like it doesn't, it's like I'd rather have them runny. Tesla 411 losing from 415 as well. Okay, do we have any other headlines? What else is going on? Oracle went green, not holding on to all of it, but still up 12, which is nice. This Axios reporting, we're seeing Trump saying there's practically nothing left to target in Iran. That's your main headline. Right now, you're not really seeing anything else coming. We talked about the IEA and the 400 million barrels being unloaded. Japan to release 80 million barrels of oil. Okay. So Japan is also going to take part of this. Wow. Trump says Iran is welcome to play in the World Cup in the United States. We're going to bomb the country, kill the supreme leader, but you guys can come play in the World Cup. That's crazy, bro. Trump's like, yeah. Is he trolling when he's saying this? Trump told CBS Iran is welcome to play in the World Cup. But yeah, it's sure nice of him that they can come play in the World Cup. How about Russia? That's a good question. I think every country is still, like, when it comes to the World Cup, there's no countries that are banned from it, right? Like when it comes to Olympics and sports, every country still gets to participate. And North Korea is North Korea involved in the Olympics? No, they do. North Korea does participate in the Olympics. They returned to international competition at the 2024 Paris Summer Olympics after skipping the 2020 Tokyo Games. Okay, so I guess all those countries will be there. Russia has been banned for several. Let me ask Gemini. Is Russia involved in the Olympics? Russia is not formally competing as a country in the 2026 Winter Olympics, and they did not compete. Oh, they got suspended by the IOC in 2023, I think, for the Ukraine invasion, the International Olympic Committee. Are we going red now? Up. She's going red. VIX, are we spiking? VIX is going up, folks. VIX goes green. It is like a game of whack-a-mole, bro. You get rid of one thing, the other thing comes up. You think you're safe for a little bit, and then you're not. VIX now green on the day. S&P obviously red on the day. Nvidia was pushing 187.50. Nvidia barely holding 186 now. Microsoft right back to where it was yesterday, 403. 1035. Adobe goes red. Grab goes red. Meta goes red. Coherent still red. Marvell still red. It's not horrible red, but it's definitely not the pre-market green that we saw. Robinhood goes red. Gold and silver still red. Nebius, I mean, look, 111 is still pretty damn good, given it was at 90 this morning. So any close above 110, I think, would be very good. 111.91 on Nebius. Do we have any Trump tweets? I don't think so. Let's see if VIX gets above 26. It's been stuck at this 25 level. No Trump tweets. Siraj, thanks for the super chat. Amit, we're going to have to do a shot at the LA meetup. Siraj, I didn't know you were going. Well, that's awesome, dude. It'll be great for those that don't know Siraj. He was I remember we are the first time we talked, I found him on X, and this is when Robin had just unveiled their credit card, and we were both trying to figure out if they could actually make this thing profitable. And he worked in the fintech space, so he's just a random guy. We got on a Zoom because we both had a vested interest in figuring out if Robin is going to go broke giving 3% cash back to everybody. And we did the math, and we were like, no, they could make this profitable. And now $10 billion has been spent on the card, and it's turned into, I don't know how profitable of a business, but it's on alone by itself, producing income, which is good. But yes, we'll do a shot at the LA meetup. I can't get drunk though. I never really drink at the meetups because I'm doing too much talking. Usually the night before we drink a little bit. But dude, I haven't even drank since the New York meetup. And I barely drank at the New York meetup. It was like the day before I drank a little bit. I by myself, I don't drink. I don't know how to drink by myself. I have to be with people to even think of drinking. So I guess next time will be LA. Amazon goes red. Google 310. Still green. They won't increase my credit limit to keep me from abusing 3%. Yeah, dude. I should have a much higher credit limit, but I think they know that if you're going to pay off the balance, they can't keep giving you the 3%, which is fair. I get it. But it is definitely still useful. When will we have the Toronto meetup? Again, I don't know if we're doing it this year. We might. Right now, we're also the Chicago meetup. Again, that is pinned at the top of the chat. It's not the tickets, but we just need to figure out if there is enough people willing to come to it before we book the venue, because it's not like LA or New York. So just please make sure to sign up to that if you are going. Tesla 412. You're not supposed to ever drink alone. That is fair. But I do think people tend to drink alone. Wait till you have kids. You'll want to drink every night. Oh my gosh. Did you see X Money at 6% APY? Yeah, it's not sustainable for them to give 6%. They're doing it as a promotion, which is smart. But yeah, there's no way they can give you 6% when the Fed funds rate is 4%. So they're losing money on that. But hopefully it gets more money into the system. Rocket Lab 72.92. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want my money on X. I'm sorry. I'm not going to keep a significant amount of money on X. And I love X. I use it every day. I'm on there 24/7. But I'm not trusting X with my money. It's people are already so sensitive about where they put their money. The amount of bugs and issues that X has every day, I'm not giving them my money. So, and I also don't know the value. I can't pay for my groceries with my X money. Now, maybe that's coming in the future, but I don't know. Right now, I'm not a fan of it. I think it'll be good for them to do it. It makes sense if you have all these hundreds of millions of people to get them to use the platform for financial transactions. I just don't know if a ton of people would want to trust it as much. Nvidia 186.20. Yeah, I think Brandon's right. People, dude, one of the reasons I like Grab is because in Southeast Asia, people want an everything app. They want everything to be in one place. In the United States and even in Europe, people don't. You want your PayPal, you want your DoorDash, you want your Shopify, you want your Uber, you want your Lyft to be separate. You want your Instagram to be separate. You don't want it in one spot. I don't know what it is about American or I should say more Western consumers, but we're just not a fan of that. Whereas in China, for example, WeChat, everything's done through WeChat. So I don't know if it's the right idea for Elon to try to make a WeChat competitor, because I just don't think the American consumer wants everything in one spot. Especially when you have all these other behemoths that already have a lot of your data in one place, like a Google, for example. But it seems like that's what they're going for. Let's get an update on this private credit stuff from JP Morgan. We talked about that headline this morning.
Credit funds that the asset managers essentially use to juice their own returns, known as back leverage. The collateral for this type of financing is the underlying loans for those private credit funds, and that is what is being slightly marked down, according to two sources close to the situation. Now, I'm told that JP Morgan essentially took this moment, did some additional due diligence across the financing portfolio, went name by name, and then had an overlay of the macro outlook. And from there, they determined that the loans were too highly valued. In this environment, a lot of this has to do with the revaluation of software. Now, what does this all mean? First, let's be super clear that this is not JP Morgan clocking a bunch of losses, but rather what they see as a preemptive move. One source described it to me as a pumping of the brakes versus hitting a wall. There are not an onslaught of margin calls. It also does not mean that private credit clients necessarily need to immediately post more collateral, only if they want more leverage. Now, what this does is limit the borrowing capacity for some private credit managers from JP Morgan. It also adds another data point to the debate over whether the current valuations being disclosed across private credit are too lofty, given the feature of private markets is that the markings happen less frequently. In response to some of that broader criticism, Apollo's co-president John Zito sang in a Bloomberg interview that the firm plans to start reporting their net asset values on a monthly basis, with the ultimate goal of disclosing on a daily basis, plus third-party valuations, guys.
So once again, private credit is in a little bit of a weird spot. JP Morgan essentially marking down some of the funds that they had from a few years ago, which is consistent with the headlines we got over the past couple of days around essentially the mark-to-market being negative for private credit. S&P 500 basically flat right there on the day. And that will be another story that we definitely have to monitor to see kind of the health of the broader American economy. Let's bring on a guest to the show, folks. He was supposed to make an appearance yesterday, but he is the CEO of a public company. So sometimes things miss his schedule, and I'm sure he's pretty busy given the events that have happened over the past couple of weeks. Ladies and gentlemen, for the third time, we have the wonderful Jeff Thompson, Redcat CEO. Jeff, thank you for being on.
Hey, Mitt. Thanks for having me. Sorry about yesterday.
No,
As
you're
you
good.
said, it's a pretty busy time of year. Actually, it's crazy world right now.
And I know you have a lot of supporters and fans who are really looking forward to it. And like, did he stand you up? I'm like, guys, he's a public CEO.
No, I would never stand up and admit it was no. Sorry.
Well, thank you for being on. I mean, there's a lot to talk about, but one of the reasons I wanted you on the show is because obviously over the past week, we have had a war breakout in Iran. You are the CEO of a drone company. We've seen a lot of these drone companies get a lot more excitement, momentum. People are just more curious about what's happening. So I want to kind of give you the floor, and based on the events of the past 7 days, what are you seeing in terms of excitement for drones, new drone technology, and overall demand that you're seeing across the entire industry?
Yeah, well, drone demand has been crazy anyway, without what just happened last week and continuing to happen, with stuff across the globe anyway. We had just finished our innovation day, which I invited you to. You're always on the major invite, and we demonstrated our maritime division, these boats. And then the next day, we're waking up to all this news, so basically we've just been, as we were already pretty pinned in telling our teams to grow, is just build. It's all about the factory, and I always say it all the time: the factory is the weapon. But I've met with all my teams and said, just increase building no matter what. We want to be able to help the U.S. government if we're called in to help, and real specifically on the blue ops side, because as you look at everything that's going on there, they're trying to shut off the Strait of Hormuz, and they're using small boats, they're using mine boats. They've got the Navy's going to try to do escorts where it's going on. So we believe that we could be a big help in that region. We think that region is going to need a lot of help for the next 5 years now with the way things are unfolding. So we think it's we hope we can really help the Navy and the Army really secure that area of the globe.
So when something like this happens, can you take me back to last Friday? Like, where were you when it broke out, and how do you, as a CEO, given you're the CEO of a company where their product might start to become heavily more in demand, how do you navigate everything that's going on as soon as you realize that the world has just changed?
Yeah, we had just finished the innovation day, and it took a lot of work. We one day we had customers, and the next day we had investors. It went very well both days. We got a lot of people wrote good stuff about it. The analysts the following week, but Saturday morning I woke up and wanted to just chill out and have a nice day off, and it was like, oh gosh, guys, we gotta get together. Started making phone calls and started getting inbound calls, and was basically on the phone constantly with it was my teams or some inbound activities that are coming in from that region. So we're just letting them know that we're here, and also talking to all our factories and supply chain to say, hey, if they call up and they need X, can we do it? Can we deliver? Can we ship? So it's mostly a lot of logistics and boring stuff. It does, it's not like I'm on the bat phone doing cool CEO stuff. No, it's logistics and making sure we can deliver for the customer.
So that was going to be my next question. Is your preparation immediately calling up all your vendors and distributors saying, hey, if there's something, if we get the big call, we need to make sure you guys are ready to deliver on what we have to do?
Yeah, actually, so fortunately, at the Black Widow, which has got the Army contract, which we talked about when we were at that Palantir event, we've already got in inventory enough to make $300 million worth of drones of the Black Widow. The Edge 130 and the fixed wing drone, which is a very exciting, the one that's above everything on that photo there. That's kind of in we're redoing it so it can handle the battlefield. So that won't be able to ramp up like the Black Widow if we want to. And then the Variant 7 boat, which is if you get to see the demo, I sent you one of the demo videos, but we put the ACS Bullfrog gun on the front of it, which does anti-drone. It can do can shoot down FPV drones going really fast. It can also shoot down Shaheeds. So that's a key item for us. So if we were in the Persian Gulf with all of our Variant 7 boats, they could all be locked and loaded with counter drones, specifically the Shaheeds. And the ACS has a really great capability to aim and not just use too many bullets. A lot of the counter guns will just use lots of rounds, and they specialize in only needing 4 to 10 rounds per counter activity. So it's quite a great solution. But on the boat side, which they're in fact, we just built 155,000 square feet in Georgia. There's the great video of these boats. That's all live, and that's actually a drone swarm that can also work off these boats. But with the new factory, basically all the phone calls right up until 2 minutes before I got on this was, do we have all the stuff we need to ramp up production immediately? So that's where we've been focusing a lot for the last 10 days.
Can we speak more broadly about the necessity of drones in warfare? So I know you've touched on it, but I mean, we've been seeing all these headlines about missiles and drone strikes and this and that, and obviously seeing the stocks of these drone companies start to get some more momentum and excitement because the market starts to think, hey, this is where more purchase orders are going to come in. How crucial are these systems in battle, and how important are drones in particular when it comes to this autonomous warfare?
Yeah, so it's interesting, and people get a little upset with you, and I just talk very frankly about where we are in the U.S. and where we are in other parts of the globe. But one of the key items for us, specifically on the Black Widow, we wanted to make sure that when we hand that to a soldier in the Army, that it is actually going to work when they finally go to a battlefield. And there's a lot of drones and other weapon systems that don't work in real theaters, but they meet all the requirements, so they can check all the boxes as a program manager. And then they buy a whole bunch of stuff from this company. And if they actually went to war with it instead of just trained with it, they wouldn't work. So we've done a lot of focus on the zero line in these actual battlefields. We're there quite a bit, and the Black Widow performs. We've got a lot of feedback. We continue, and now our cycles, because we're getting help from the front lines, is our cycles are like a week or 2 weeks. We don't wait 3 or 4 months for updates. So we know that we're going to be giving something to a soldier that works. You got to work in GPS denied, and that's also why we also work with Palantir. They do our visual navigation for the drone, which is an incredible technology, because there's like 30 visual navigation companies, but none of them can do it as well as Palantir. But then also the controls of the drone have to be able to handle electronic warfare, so they don't get shut off. And our drone continues to prove it, that it can handle that EW. Even we brought what we called like a Frankendoodle Edge 130, the Triton, that bigger drone that's being made in California. We've got that working there now, so we can't wait to get that finally into production. So the key thing for us is, you see all this stuff, Drone War 1, drones changing warfare, all of this stuff, and a lot of that's just coming out of the Ukrainian guys. They're probably the best at innovation right now.
Yeah.
And if you're smart, you'll learn from them, and then continue to iterate and utilize the U.S. manufacturing once you have that iterations going. But that's what I think people have to continue to make sure is it really going to work? There's so much stuff that's still to this day, even some of these exquisite weapons and missiles from the big four, you still use GPSs. GPSs don't work. They're never going to work ever again. It's never going to ever work in a battlefield. So it's crazy to me that people aren't testing them for real battlefields as much as they should.
How are you thinking of how, you said GPSs are never going to work again. Has anything happened over the past couple of weeks and maybe even months, given what happened in Venezuela as well, to get you to think things have fundamentally changed in warfare? Like, are there any core things that you think we're never going back to how things used to be?
Yeah, well, I would start with a GPS. Almost every drone was using GPSs until these wars broke out and realized they don't work at all.
Yeah.
The size of weapons, like, look at, everyone's talking about drones the last 10 days, right? What are they talking about? They're talking about a Delta Wing Shahed 136, which is not very large, but they're effective not because they're great drones. They're really not. They're slow. They're big enough size so they're easy to see, so you can shoot them down. But if they send 50 of them at you, then it's very difficult to get all 50, and maybe 3 of them will do damage. Everyone keeps talking about mass again. That's what the whole replicator initiative was based on, was mass. But it's not people. Like, Outer War was always talking about mass, but it was human beings getting mowed down. Now it's drone on drone, and it's like, if they got 50, you need to have 100. So it's that's where we're heading. And it's really, as Alex Karp always says, small, smart weapons is where everybody's heading.
Right. Last question for you, China and how, they are approaching drone warfare. I know the DJI has officially been banned in the United States. How do you see that relationship playing out as drone warfare only continues to increase?
Yeah, well, they say they don't sell to Russia or the Ukraine, but they're the most used drone on both sides. So they're full of crap. They are adversary. They're backed by the CCP, but for people that in the U.S. that are consumers, they make good drones, and they put every consumer drone company out of business. But I think the good news is they're continuing to build them as a consumer drone, where our drones are actually, we've surpassed them. We can do swarming. Our drones are more robust. They can handle weather. Like, if you took, and you pick up that drone by DJI in a Best Buy, they're consumerish. If you drop it from 3 feet, it's done. It's never going to fly again. So they're not very robust for battle. But when we built the Maritime Division Blue Ops, that was really based on Indo-PACOM. So we've been really looking at mass, swarms, missiles off of our boats, torpedoes off of our boats, throwing 100 USVs that can go 1,000 nautical miles into the theater without a single human being. They're all swarming, so they don't need one-to-one. The one thing that everyone always overlooks in the drone world is that the pilot is the most expensive part. Everyone's like, oh, this drone costs $350,000. Oh, this one only costs $30,000. But most of these drones are not even autonomous, like FPV. Everyone's really excited about FPV. They had the gauntlet with the Army and PBAS the last couple of weeks, and they're useless without either an ISR drone to tell them where to go. And when you look at it 1-to-1, one pilot to one drone, that's a horrible business model for the Department of War. So as we can go into swarming, which we're really focusing on now, you lower that cost, but also just make one person can show up with 8 or 20 devices, whether it's boats or drones, and really do some damage, and keep those other people available to use their weapons.
And I would imagine AI is also becoming a tailwind in terms of not only the manufacturing process, but the actual targeting process.
Oh yeah, that video you just showed with the gun on the front, that's using AI for aiming, and it has stabilization, and then we actually have stabilization on the boat, which a lot of guys don't do. So we're making the boat more stable so it can shoot, but then it has AI to adjust to the movement of the boat to actually make that in 4 shots.
All right. I love it. Jeff, thank you for joining the show. There he is. You guys can follow him on X to get more updates from Redcat. I'm sorry I wasn't able to make the Innovation Day, I think, that you guys had a couple of weeks ago, but hopefully on the next.
We'll have more. We'll keep you in the loop. Thanks for having me.
I love it. Thank you, Jeff. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye, Mitt.
All right. There you go. From a CEO that is experiencing what's going on with this war. I think the most important thing that Jeff said right there is that if there were to be a massive level of demand and purchase orders for these drones, which again, we've been seeing that across the entire industry, making sure your vendors, your suppliers, your distributors have the ability to actually get that stuff into order. It seems like that is kind of one of the most pressing things. Kratos, AeroVironment, Ondas, those have been kind of the main names that have benefited from the drone ecosystem, even though AV had an ugly earnings. That one, dude, it was at 194. Now it's at 212. It was down 10. Now it's down 4. So that bid came in place, and you're seeing people grab it up. Rocket Lab, that's up 6% as well on the day. Kratos up 1.6. Redcat up 7. And then Ondas, that is up 1.8%. I'm having CEO interviews for breakfast. Dude, the Ondas CEO, again, I've got to reach out to him again. This was a month ago. He was in Singapore. His team said they would reach out. I should probably just message them again and see if we can make it happen. But again, that one should be in the pipeline. It's just I've been traveling the past couple of weeks as well, which has been made it a little harder to schedule. But we should be able to have him on. Again, Ondos did acquire that company recently as well. That was also very good for them. This stock was like 50 cents last year. Now it's at $10. So obviously it has a massive move. Nvidia right there, 186.50. He's been pretty busy. There's news every day. Yeah, and I feel like we have a new headline every day. I'm gonna literally message his guy right now. See if we can make this thing happen. I'll be like, hey, we just had Jeff from Redcat on, so maybe that'll make them be like, okay, yeah, we got to get on soon. From my understanding, Ondas is more of a platform company than Redcat. That's my understanding of these drones. Again, I don't have any position in these drone companies. I do not own Redcat. I wish I owned Redcat because it's had a great year, but I do not own any of the drone names at all. Drones were a thematic, and it was not the theme that I thought would be in favor this year. It's an important theme, obviously based on what, but it's not a theme that I purposefully decided to buy into. But obviously those themes have become a lot more important, and edge compute there's a lot of intersection between that, AI, and the drones as well. Bitcoin right there, 70.6. When are you having Trump on? Dude, I think you guys would lose your minds if I had Trump on, because half of you guys in the chat would go crazy and be like, I can't believe Amit is giving a platform to Trump, which I don't need to give him a platform. The guy's the president of the United States. He has a platform. The other half would be like, oh my goodness, Trump's on. It would be chaos in the chat if Trump came on the stream. Like, it would legit be crazy. Now, if the president wants to talk, I mean, yeah, I'm open to having the freaking president of the United States on the show. I just don't think they would want to do a market open show. But it would be pretty freaking cool if we had it. I could tell the entire chat, bro. It would be crazy. Like when I had Devin Ryan on, who like somewhat looks like Tucker Carlson, you guys cannot hold back with the comments. So I can't even imagine if we have Trump. They'll literally crash the internet. We need to get Sailor on. I've always been so curious to talk to Sailor. It would be a lot of fun. Just asking him how he thinks about Bitcoin. It's so easy to rage bait him too. Like, well, what if Bitcoin goes to zero? And immediately he takes a deep breath. It's the simplest question you can ask. Rocket Lab up 6, Nvidia 186. We should have Tom Lee on again. He's been traveling as well. He's in Miami, but I think we'll have Tom Lee on at least on basis points in April, and that would be fun. Dude, I'd love to have Mamdani on as well. I want to talk to anybody. I'd love to just like get a glimpse into how they think of, at least from an economic perspective, their policies and the implication of that on their policies. Bitcoin right there, 70.6. Also, for people that say I'm super biased against Vlad or that I glaze him too much, I asked some pretty hard questions in the interview. In fact, one of the questions was about prediction markets, and I was just like, you know, why are you corrupting the youth? And even Vlad was like, damn, bro, that's a little intense of a question. But, you know, I asked what the people wanted to hear. And I think we have a cool enough rapport where I can get away with asking that stuff.
Going to be easier. So we probably will have more and more quant traders who are just using AI to write strategies.
I want to get your broad take on prediction markets. I know you've talked about it a lot. Going to hit you with the question that everyone keeps asking. Why is it not gambling? And why is Robinhood so excited to turn the youth into degenerates with gambling?
Yeah. It's a very, no easy question.
Look at his face. He's like, really, Amit? You just accused me of creating degenerate gamblers? And I'm like, well, that's what everyone keeps saying. So I had to ask it. With gambling.
Yeah. It's a very, no easy question. No, I love it.
But, you know, I've defended the product because I see it as a class where BlackRock and all the financial institutions that are responsible for market making, Citadel, they see a massive opportunity to see how people can hedge exposure and things of that nature. But people right now see it run by sports. And right. I wonder how you think the future of that product will evolve to. And then, you know, he goes on to basically say, in order to have a market, you need speculation, you need hedging, you need all these different components that come together. He also, I actually thought his take about sports becoming a bigger part of the economy was also pretty interesting. I didn't expect him to go that route, but he is right that there's a lot more money involved in sports now.
Yeah. I mean, sports is becoming a bigger and bigger part of the economy. If you had to think of one sector that maybe is immune to AI disruption, you can imagine sports as a percentage of the economy is only gonna increase. Nobody's gonna want to watch robots racing around the track.
I'm not watching the Yankees if it's 9 robots.
Yeah, just
it's not happening.
All hitting home runs.
No.
They will. Yeah, although I don't know, maybe the pitcher robot will get really good, and we'll see which.
That was a genuine laugh, by the way. That wasn't a fake laugh. Like when he said, I just imagined in my head 9 robots all hitting home runs. I was like, that'd be kind of funny, dude. If we could program the robots to just be perfect at sports. Like sports is that one thing we have left that is like intrinsically human and based on your skill and your aptitude and your talent from a physical perspective. If we get rid of that, it's all gone. But That was not a fake laugh, bro. That was a hyena laugh. Whenever I bust out the hyena laugh, you know it's real. Like, when you can hear the depths of my voice screaming into laughter, it's a legit laugh. But yeah, look, we asked the hard questions, and I mean, Vlad likes the challenge of answering those questions. Ultimately, I think prediction markets are going to continue to grow, but right now they are sports, and obviously until it expands from that, people are going to perceive it in one way. SoFi at 1830, Nvidia 186, S&P is flat. It is flat on the day. No one would fake that laugh. Treasuries are tanking, are they? The 10-year. Yeah, you're right, 4.2. These yields are going up. These yields are going up. They were below 4 for like a week, and then we started a war, and now they're back above 4. Have you ever watched Revenge of the Nerds? I've heard of this. Revenge of the Nerds. 1984. Who's Robert Carradine? Curtis Armstrong? Revenge of the Nerds. No, I feel like I've heard of this movie, but I haven't watched it. Robert Carradine. This was the dad on Lizzie McGuire? Really? I like Lizzie McGuire, which is a Disney show. So gay. I used to watch Lizzie McGuire. No, I've never seen this. I've heard of the name, though, Revenge of the Nerds. Why? Does he have like a crazy laugh or something inside that movie? I need to put it on the... Oh, you know the movie I watched the other day? I watched this over the weekend. I watched... There is a laugh. What do I type in YouTube to find the laugh? There's got to be like a video of him just laughing, right? Oh, I have it. Hold on. Okay. Let's... Hold on. Okay, let's see this. Is this better than my laugh?
Help!
This just looks like a fake laugh, bro. It's not even that funny.
That she wore for the first time today.
Okay, never mind. It's kind of funny. It's kind of funny. It's like he's yelling his laugh before he laughs. Okay, I guess I'll watch this movie, Revenge of the Nerds. Yeah, see, my laugh is different because it gets so high pitched. I'm kind of yelling it too, but I'm more like screaming it versus yelling it. The octane in his voice is like yelling before you hear the laugh. Anyway, the movie I watched over the weekend was Air Force One, and I like legit watched the whole thing for 3 hours or 2.5 hours, whatever it was. And I was like, I think this whole Iran war thing got me like, I don't know, into this rabbit hole of just like the president and the United States and all this stuff. And Air Force One is what I watched, and I honestly think it's a top 10 movie of all time. Yeah, Harrison Ford. I think it's a top 10 movie of all time. CPI was 2.4 versus 2.4 expected, which is why the market's basically flat. I mean, the sort of like CGI wasn't the best because it was the 90s, but it was a pretty decent movie. This is, I think, the third time I've ever watched it. The last time I watched it was like 5-6 years ago. Okay, maybe it's not top 10, but it definitely is enjoyable to watch it. So that's what I did last weekend. They watched the movie He's Lying. I actually really did watch it. I like legit was interested in watching it. All right, I think we're done for the day, folks. That is it for me. S&P is flat. We're really not seeing that much more momentum. The main headlines were more quotes from Trump to Axios about ending this war. Oil starting to get down a bit, 83 on crude, and then the IEA releasing 400 million barrels of oil, or approving the release of 400 million barrels. So that is good to see. Nvidia 186. Again, they invested in Nebius, $2 billion. That's why Nebius is getting some love today. HIM's getting some love. So individual names making their move. Now the question is, can they hold on to that? IREN's up 8%. The Qs are up 0.24. But until we get some more clarity on this war ending, we might continue to be stuck. And then Oracle, again, monster earnings. That stock right there, up 10.4%. Okay, so I will not be doing a market close. And to be honest, I think Thursday I will be gone the entire day. There is an event happening tomorrow. You guys will find out what the event is tomorrow. I have to drive for the next 4 hours to go to that event. And that event is probably going to take up the market open and the market close, unfortunately. So, well, and it's, I hate saying, it's also going to take up Friday's market open. But we'll be back on the Friday close. This is the longest I've taken off. Usually this event happens on the West Coast, and so I can wake up early and do the show and be on time for the event. This time, this event is not on the West Coast, which means there's no time arbitrage in order for me to be able to do the show and then do the event. So Thursday is done. And then Friday morning is also just not going to happen. But we'll be back Friday afternoon. And I don't know, maybe we do a Friday late night stream or something with Steve. We'll figure out what we do. Honestly, maybe we should do that. Because Steve does a Friday show every late night. Maybe I'll join that. We'll see. We'll see what we can do. But yeah, unfortunately, Thursday's going to be off. But there's no really good earnings today. There's nothing today. I mean, really, there's nothing happening. There's Bumble and there's UiPath. I know a lot of people like UiPath, but it's not the biggest company in the world. Bumble it's a dating app. And then Adobe's the big one. I'm sure Neil, who went to Adobe's conference last month, was going to be doing Adobe. So you'll definitely have someone doing Adobe on Thursday, and then I'll be back on Friday. Blue Owl, by the way, getting hit pretty hard, down 5% right now. So we're seeing some of these credit names continue to get hit. Again, that could be affecting SoFi. KKR, wow, all of them are dumping. KKR down 4. Apollo just went down 3. BlackRock just fell 2. We already talked about the JP Morgan headline around private credit. I don't know if there's another one that just popped up, but all of them getting dumped right there. Trump just responded to Macron put out a video saying, I agree we should release the oil. And then Trump said in response to the Macron broadcast, I think we are having a tremendous impact on the world. SPY's dumping. SPY's not dumping, but it is going. Nebius is taking that first red candle of the day, a hard red candle. Nvidia, yeah, you're seeing red candles across the board. A lot of these names are up so much that they're even Redcat. It was up 9%, now it's up 5%. Ondas just went red. I think there's a private credit headline because all of these are getting hit the worst. I don't think it's this Trump comment with Macron, which just seems to be showing support for the IEA decision. So I don't think that's the reason. French presidency broadcasts video message of Macron to G7 leaders in support of the release of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Okay, that's not doing it. I don't know what's doing it, but quite frankly, might not be any reason because we are once again in the chop. And that chop at 11:15 probably is starting to get choppy again. Rocket Lab, it was at 73, back to 71. All right. That's what you got. SoFi almost below 18. Yeah, I mean, guys, this is every day, right? Every single day. There is just not a trend. And until we get a market-moving event, the war ending, or the market moving on from a lot of these AI fears, we're just in the chop. We are just in the chop. All right, word of the day. Let's do that. And then we will be back on Friday. We'll be back on Friday. But there's going to be an interview that's out tonight. Shyam Sankar. I think people will enjoy that. So even though no market close, hopefully you guys enjoy the interview. Then we'll be back on Friday. Okay, perfunctory. Perfunctory. Done with minimal effort or attention, carried out merely as a routine duty. The analyst questions felt perfunctory, like he had already decided his conclusion. Okay, let's see if I'm saying this right.
Perfunctory.
Not bad. Perfunctory. There you go. Perfunctory is our word of the day. I'm definitely never going to use this word, but I even forgot yesterday's word of the day. I'm going to vibe code a website that has all the dates for the meetups and everything. We need to vibe code a website that actually records these words of the day so that we can go back to it, all of us, and just like remember the words that we're learning every day and maybe use them in our life, because I just never use any of these words. So we got to see if we can do it. All right. I'll be back again on Friday. I really am sorry. Usually this stuff happens on the West Coast and we're able to navigate it, but it's East Coast now. So 8:45 to 11 in the morning is going to be the event. And there's just going to be no way to be there tomorrow. So again, no market close, probably not here on Thursday, but Friday afternoon we'll be back. We'll have a lot to talk about. Market's probably going to be at the same exact price that it's at right now if it continues to be choppy. If not, hopefully we see some movement to the upside. But we're going to see how this plays out. I'm going to be FSDing as well. Second trip since Boston of FSDing for multiple hours. So hopefully FSD does its thing, and I'll report back with what happens. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. We'll be back on Friday. Have a great rest of day. Neil will probably stream Adobe tomorrow. We'll keep up with that. And we'll be back on Friday, see where things go. And we will keep going from there. You take more time off than people in Europe. Oh, my gosh. This is actually the first time I'm taking a full day off. But, it is what it is. We'll be back. We'll be back. And I will let everyone know how FSD goes. I think it'll be good. This is now 14. Last time I did 13. So this one should be a lot better as well. All right. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you guys on Friday. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.